Meeting of the PUSD Governing Board to order. All of our members are present. If you'll all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you to all of you who are here today, and welcome. We appreciate your interest in our board meetings as usual. First item is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any questions about the agenda that's been presented?
I was just wondering if we could maybe consider taking item B6, the accepting of the annual comprehensive reports, the uniform financial records, and the compliance questionnaire, and move it till next month, if that's appropriate, just because it was buried and I didn't have, I thought it would be here and it wasn't, and I didn't get to read it.
So, if I'm understanding you right, are you making a motion to table that item for 1 month?
It's a new mandate from auditors, and there's a time limit on it. It needs to be
Correct.
approved.
Last year, they made it so that a roll call needs to be accepting the 3 documents that our auditors do. Needs to be roll called accepted by March 31st, and we don't get it until the end of February. This is the only board meeting that we have in order to do that.
Okay.
I
I will withdraw my motion.
can go over it really thoroughly so that you know what's in it.
Okay. Any other?
It's more housekeeping than philosophical, do I understand that correctly? Yeah.
It's a roll call vote.
It's basically that the board has seen it, correct?
Exactly.
Thanks.
Are there any other questions about the agenda for tonight? Okay, then could I get a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Next item is approval of the minutes. We have minutes from our regular study and voting session of February 7th and the special study and voting session of February 17th. Are there any questions or concerns about the minutes? Okay, hearing none, could I get a motion to approve the minutes from the regular study and voting session meeting of February 7th, 2023, and the special study and voting session meeting of February 17th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? And the motion passes. Okay, item 6, our first presentation is from Dr. Mark Jornstad with ASBA, and he's going to give us an update on the search and the leadership profile that was sent out to the community. Dr. Jornstad.
Members of the board, I have this report here for you. I just received it. The survey closed yesterday at 5 p.m. and I received the results about 5:30. So I started working on them after that. So I finished this morning. So you did not get this in advance. So I'm giving you a copy now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Members of the board, Superintendent Howard, audience, good evening. This was the opportunity for the community, parents, board members, other interested citizens to provide some input into the search for the superintendent of your next leader of your school district. The outcome goal, as it states there, is to select the best fit, the highest qualified person to lead the Prescott Unified School District into the future. And in the interest of transparency and stakeholder input, then this survey was put out. And there was a couple-week window allowed for that, and they closed, as I just mentioned, at 5 o'clock yesterday afternoon. And this is part of a timeline involved in this search. And we're in phase 2 right now, posting, recruiting, community survey, and input. You see the dates that it just closed. The application window is still open. I believe that I checked early this morning. I think there's been six applications that are in process already. I'm confident that there will be probably 10 to 12 applicants at least before that window closes. And as you can see, these various phases of the survey that are ongoing. And right now, the board has scheduled the week of March 27th, I believe, actually the day of March 27th, the board would screen the applications and review them all very carefully, and at that point, likely make a decision which of those applications will proceed further in the process and actually be interviewed. Then in phase 4, the week of the 4th of April, there will be an interview with those selected applicants whose paper screen deems them qualified to go on further in the process. And then the next part of that process may well be after the initial interviews. The board may then decide to do some finalist interviews. And part of that finalist interview, whether it's 2 or 3 or 4 finalists, there would be, with this, the staff members would have a forum with those finalists. All the members of the staff, certified, classified, who work in the Prescott Unified School District. And then following that forum with the staff members, there would be a forum with community members as well to meet these finalists. That would be facilitated by members of the Arizona School Board Association staff members, and there would be an opportunity then for the finalists to respond to questions, for the community members to provide some written input. Then the board following that would meet, review the candidates once more. Finalist interviews would have taken place. Then they would review the input that they have from the finalist interviews, from the staff forum, from the community forum. At that point, make a decision. Very important decision, determining the future leadership of the school district. Then phase 5, the board would select a finalist to enter into negotiations for a contract. And phase 6, the board would approve a superintendent's contract. And the newly selected leader would do some transition work with the board, with the current leadership, and ideally would assume the leadership of the district July 1st. So that's the process. The survey itself received extensive participation. 847 responses were received. I read them all. That's why you didn't get this. I mean, we kept it open until 5 o'clock, and people were on it into the afternoon yesterday. Good. I got the results about 5:30. There was really extensive participation. And question 1 was, who's answering this survey? And by the way, you might say, gee, did some people who had a lot of time on their hands take the survey multiple times? No. Once your computer logged a response, your computer could not go back in and log another response. So I suppose if someone had a room full of computers and a lot of time on their hands, they could have used 10 different computers and taken the survey 10 times if they really wanted to do that. Yes.
So you said that the survey was very secure, right? You just got the information?
Yes.
Was anyone else, I just have one concern, and I just wanted you to go over it. There was a email sent out to some community members that implied that the number of surveys sent in and the content had been released early.
No.
Is there any possible way?
I would love to have had it early myself, so I could have started looking and preparing my presentation, but that was not shared with anyone. It stayed within ASBA's hands. In fact, I looked at it yesterday. Ben Adams, who works for ASBA, sent it to me. Even Tracy Benson, whom you met, is busy doing a search for Creighton School District. So I asked her if she'd looked at it, and she said, I'm relying on you to do that because she's busy meeting with the Creighton District. It's their superintendent searches going on. So those our reputation, to be honest, depends on us being able to maintain not just, frankly, confidentiality of the results, but also confidentiality of the people submitting those surveys. So
Okay, thank you for clarifying
yeah,
that.
no, so that was my my life last night, was working on that survey. To give you an idea, when we get to some of these questions, there were, I think, individual comments, by the time I was finished, numbered over 1,000 individual comments, and they were read. So those of you who submitted a survey, if you submitted a comment, an actual person read those comments, namely me.
Dr. Jorstad, if I will.
Yes.
So on those radials, I mean, I qualify for 3 of those alone, and I just wondered, are some of those overlapping?
Yes. You could choose, respondents could choose up to 3 of these, because some of them undoubtedly who checked work for the district also had kids in the district, and maybe you could choose up to 3. So if you add up those percentages, you'll notice they go beyond 100%.
Right. Mike, I have a quick question. How do you consider the number 847? Is that a large number for a district this size?
That's a really
or-
strong number. We did the search for the Roosevelt School District, which is a elementary district in Phoenix, which has quite a few more students than you have, and they did not have 8, and they were really happy with their participation. It was not 800 though. So they were very happy with it, and they held a community forum as well to have people come in person, and no one showed up. And they said nobody showed up because everybody did the survey, but they didn't. I think they had 600 and some. So I thought this was good. And to call out a couple things, notice, for example, I'm a community member without a family member, 300 and some, 35%. In other words, community participation was strong.
Taxpayers.
And one of the things I'll mention a little later, the community is interested in what goes on in this school district. I don't need to tell you that. You know that and live it, but that really shows that. But people who work for the district, 190, a family member is a student in the district, the parents, in other words, 280, former employees of the district, my children attended this district in the past, 200 of them. So across the spectrum, there's deep interest in what goes on in this district. Interesting enough, this survey wasn't a 2-minute, those of you who took it, this was not a 2-minute survey. And one of the things people talk about in a survey is beyond about 5 minutes, those of you who frequently get emails saying, take this survey, after 2 or 3 minutes, you're like, forget it. This survey was not a 2 or 3 minute survey.
Mr. Jornstadt, we're going to just seat a couple people waiting in the doorway.
Okay,
And they have to go right by. Sorry about that.
that's all right.
While they're doing that, if I might, I'll note that that's 41% of our full-time staff, of our
Thank you. I wondered
non-seasonal
about
staff. Yeah, so it's a huge percentage of our
No,
staff
don't
that
mind
choose to participate.
people come in. I taught for years and years. I'm used to people being called to the office and walking in and out while you're teaching. Hey, that's life, right? I'm sure there's some teachers here who empathize with that. Okay, let's look at the questions. Any questions from you about the participants before we move on? So question 1 had to do with leadership skills. people could choose 2 responses. Number 1 response was experience in motivating staffs and students, improving morale and generating enthusiasm. 52% chose that as the top trait. Second trait, but trailed it considerably, 31%, leads but is willing to pitch in to help at any level of the organization. And I think that's an important qualifier in this question. In other words, someone who's, to put it bluntly, is willing to get their hands dirty, so to speak. Pitch in at any level. To me, that's an important qualifier in that particular question. Academic, and each one of these, by the way, comments could be written in. Generally, they added, on this question, they added about 90 comments. 90 different individuals added comments. Some of the questions, 50 or 60, some of them 90 or 100. So there was a lot to read, and it was interesting to see people's suggestions. Academic programs. What did people value in academic programs? Planning and implementing continuous improvement in all academic areas. And that was a focus that showed in the responses to that questions too. A lot of people said the district had a reputation over the years for strong academics, but it's very important to improve academic achievement, and not just, several people said, don't just talk about improving academic achievement. The leader of the district has to have a plan and implement a plan to have continuous academic improvement. There needs to be a focus on that. And that came through. That was a 41%. But notice how close it was to second place, 39.7%. Mission to raise student achievement, and notice those last 2 words, for all. And that's a critical factor, for all. In other words, for high achieving students, for students who struggle to achieve, for the gamut of students. These questions, we've run this survey for over a decade, and we've honed these questions. So every word in the questions has implications. Board superintendent relations. This one, these were 2 very close ones as well. Child-centered, the superintendent must be a child-centered advocate who holds the beliefs that all children can learn. And I think there was, you notice the ellipsis in there, who holds and models and is able to convince staff that all children can learn. There was a longer, I couldn't squeeze it all into that box. 57%. But a close second, communicates transparently with candor. Interesting word there. Transparently, important, but with candor. Don't want someone who just communicates transparently, but just making stuff up. No. Transparently with candor. Very important one. Then, I'm sorry, I mistyped that. Communication and community engagement. And this one, experience in bringing diverse groups together. Lots of commentary on that. And you'll see when we get to the strengths and challenges part, those are questions 9 and 10. There was a lot of elaboration there. There was just a lot of commentary here on, you need a superintendent who has facilitation skills, who can listen to diverse viewpoints, strongly disagree, people who strongly disagree, and unite them around a common goal. A lot of the comments talked about that. that the superintendent's gonna really need to be someone who can bridge disagreements within the community. And then someone with experience who has successfully engaged the public, the media, and support groups in the community, stakeholder groups. Successfully engage them around a common goal, the education of the kids, successful education of the kids. And I might add, they probably should have said walks on water as well. Because this is so these are challenging things. Questions on these particular ones before we move on?
Just for everybody's clarification, Dr. Jornstad, so there were about 6 different areas that we could
Many
click on, right?
choices, yep.
And these are the top 2 of each one of
Yep.
those that you're seeing, right? Okay, thanks. Was it 6 or?
7 or 8, I can, if you
7 or
want
8.
me to elaborate on them, I've got it on my computer.
Well, I'm just curious, because
Yeah.
those are high percentages
Yeah.
for these top ones.
The
or
lowest
2.
percentages were around 5 to 7%.
Okay.
Generally, in each one, there were 2 or 3 that were 40, 45. You will see in a minute, there was one that was 70 or 80, and then all the rest were way down there. But generally, the lower percentage ones were into the teens and 7 or 8 or 9%.
So these are strong. is
Yeah,
what you're
these
saying.
were strong. The winners were so-called, the winning ones were in most cases, were clear and above the rest of them. And it was interesting, I compared this to another district that I recently worked with. Some were absolutely the same, motivating staff and students, improving morale. Others, completely different. Each community tends to have a different, a certain flavor that really arises in some of the questions, not in others. But it was very, very different in some. Okay, I'm a runaway freight train sometimes, so you have to interrupt me with your questions if I forget to ask. Staff development. Now notice the high number on this one, and this was in several communities, has successfully recruited, selected, and retained highly qualified staff. 2/3 of the people. And we know that in the state of Arizona, this is maybe the #1 issue faced by a majority of school districts and charter schools. The majority of public schools in Arizona, this is maybe the #1 thing that's faced. And then half, this in second place clearly, but still ahead of a lot of the others, skill in supervising employees at all levels. Because the superintendent deals with teachers, classified staff, other administrative staff. The superintendent's dealing with all the different employee groups. Decision-making. Notice the difference between first and second place here. Includes parents, staff, community, and students. Yes, and students, which you modeled that with your board, in development of recommendations, 59%. And second, someone who's established a strong, effective management team, 44%. And this decision-making one is several districts I've worked with. That's an emphasis. Because the days of autocratic rule, they're gone in education. It's collaboration. Whether you're talking a principal or a superintendent, teamwork is what gets things done. As they say, what does the proverb say? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that shows here, and that shows in successful school districts. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox and go on to question 8. Operations. #1 here, 62% knows procedures for assessing and improving district operations. In other words, They know, the leader knows what's going on. He or she knows what's going on, whether it's in transportation, finance, in the classroom, in construction. You want the superintendent to know what's going on in all facets of district operations. 62%. And secondly, someone with experience in the efficiently managed operation of a school or a district. Someone who's run a school and even maybe has run a district before and run it efficiently and effectively. Someone who's walked in the shoes of leadership. Not they've read a textbook about it and taken a few classes, they've actually done it. They have a track record of leadership. Questions on those? Now notice these 9 questions, they've run the gamut. Instructional leadership, academic leadership, board relations, district operations, decision-making in general, the processes of it, staff development. They really cross the board.
Dr. Jornstead, will this information be shared with candidates in any way?
It's up to you.
Okay,
The board's running this.
okay.
Now, I might just add, if I'm, for example, one time I was a candidate for some superintendent positions. I was a finalist several times and got the call that I wasn't selected a few times, gnashed my teeth, pulled up my big boy pants and moved on and eventually was a superintendent. What did I do in preparing? I watched board meetings where things like this in the district I was presenting. I watched the board meeting and watched presentations like this because that's what you do if you're a good candidate and prepare. You watch board meetings like this and see what are they looking for? What does the community want? I read the community surveys. You know, so if they're an on-the-ball candidate, they're going to go on your website and watch the video of this.
Okay. But we'll be able to make that decision if we choose to at our next
Yep.
executive session.
So they should, if they're on the ball, they should be doing that
Okay.
on their own. They should be looking up on your website, they should be looking up your AFR,
Yeah.
annual financial report. They should know that. So when they walk in the room, they should know a lot about your district if they really want the job.
Thank you.
Sorry, I keep editorializing. It's just, that's what they should be doing. Welcome. Okay, now, question 10 and 11. All of these, by the way, there are lots of comments on each one of these individual areas.
We haven't gone over number 9 yet.
Say that again?
Number 9, did we do number 9?
Oh, I didn't do number 9.
My brain does tend to disappear on occasion, but we haven't done number 9
Yep.
yet.
Budget and finance, how could we forget that? Sorry, Brian. Look at the answer to this one. 71% has successful experience in planning, managing, and evaluating annual budgets. They know something about spending money well. And implement ways to restore financial stability, 37%, if it needs restoring. If it's already there, which in this district, based on what I've read, in looking at your AFRs and there are other things, the financial stability is there. If it's there, you got to keep it there. Very important. You don't just go on a spending spree. I'm the new kid in the candy store, I'm the new superintendent, let's spend money. No, this guy will stop him. But very important, because resources are not unlimited. Planning, managing, and evaluating annual budgets. So, then we come to the open-ended part of the survey, and this was the last part of it. People you would think would be worn out. I've answered too many questions. I'm sick of this. They were not worn out. Questions 10 and 11 ask for people to type in their answers And I know they weren't worn out because I read those answers. Question 10, 2 or 3 of the most significant strengths of the district. There were almost 600 responses. There's a lot of, I read 600 responses. Certain themes emerged. And reading them in a spreadsheet is challenging reading. But it was very interesting. You get a flavor of the community there. And I'll tell you what the number one thing was, clearly was number one, mentioned probably 400 times in one form or another. Outstanding teachers, staff, leaders, all those were mentioned. Teachers were mentioned the most. And the words that were used repeatedly was dedicated, caring, student-centered, again and again and again. Just a lot of praise for teachers, and when I say staff, teachers were praised a lot, but also staff members, classified staff members were mentioned. The leadership was mentioned. People carefully delineated that it was more than just teachers. They talked about, in detail about it, and about the word caring was used very frequently. The district motto of every student, every day was cited several times. It was impressive. This came from a wide variety of, you looked at who answered. Community members, parents. This was again and again and again mentioned, literally hundreds of times. So that just, I put that as the top one because that was the top thing that came out in the strengths of the district. And when I talked, as the board members know, I talked to 5 board members as well with phone interviews. That was mentioned by board members as well. Second thing that came in, and there were a number of strengths that emerged, a number of them. I'm just coalescing this. Outstanding programs and opportunities, and maybe programs not the best, but opportunities. And this is going beyond, for example, what you think of as the bread and butter of a district, teaching reading, teaching math, teaching science. Those are mentioned as well. But people really focused on the extra opportunities that they saw children getting. Sports was mentioned. Fine arts was mentioned, especially band, theater, things like that. CTE was mentioned, and I noticed on the agenda there's going to be a CTE report later tonight. Technology was mentioned, the one-to-one computing, the use of technology to offer opportunities to students. The advanced courses and the dual enrollment and the other things that are opportunities. Special education was mentioned several times, was singled out, that students really are given some opportunities there. There was just, it was impressive. People took their time. After taking that long survey, they took time to single out and mention some of these things. And the other thing that really strongly emerged was the community and parent involvement and support, that this community is involved, parents are involved, that the district, several times said the district reaches out, communicates with parents, with the community, tries to foster that involvement. And the fact is, when 800 people take a survey, that demonstrates that involvement. That 800 people took the time to complete that survey. But they, it really showed that. There was many other strengths were mentioned as well. The facilities were cited several times, and that often said, despite the challenges of the finances that we face in Arizona and in the community, the facilities seemed well managed. There was just a number of strengths. People went out of their way to go on. It was impressive. And there were, as I said, there were probably, I think, around 600 or so responses to that. That was by about 9 o'clock last night. Then I went to, let me give you a chance to ask questions about this, but people were singled out. Names of teachers and others were singled out for praise. Names of leaders were singled out. Come on, man. I talk loudly, but I'm not mean. Okay, let's go to challenges. Yes, Mrs.
Didn't
Khan.
we have 12 questions? Didn't we agree to put 4 open-ended on the survey?
Say that again?
I believe we talked about having all 4 questions put on the survey, open-ended questions. So there's only 2 that went on.
I think you're talking about the application.
Yeah, that's on the
essay question,
application.
Probably.
That's the application.
No,
Oh.
we agreed that we would put all 4 open-ended questions on the survey.
On the application.
That was the application you're talking about.
Because they were specific for candidates. They were questions that were specific for candidates.
They were the 200-word essay that we had that discussion with.
Okay.
We'll get you the video.
So the challenges, and there were plenty of challenges. People were very frank, brutally frank, and there were 500 plus responses there as well. And some of those were interwoven with strengths and challenges, some of the same themes that came up. The first one, recruiting, retaining, and compensating qualified skilled staff. And that was, I combined that a little bit because sometimes they talked about recruiting and retaining qualified staff. Sometimes they talked about Prescott's a very expensive place to live. We've got to make sure we compensate staff so they can afford to stay with us and don't go to other districts nearby or don't get lured away to other places. There was just a lot of talk about keeping staff and how do we do that in this current environment that we're in. There's just a lot of talk about that. Then, there's a lot of talk about keeping political agendas out of the schools. A lot of talk about that. And that was interesting. That talk came from all across, what I would call all across the spectrum of political beliefs. That regardless of whether you're on this side or this side of the spectrum, people wanted those beliefs kept out of the education of the kids. The word indoctrination was used sometimes. There was a lot of talk about that. And what emerged also from that was there's strong community support, but within the strong community support, there's divisions, there's vastly differing beliefs. And all those beliefs center around the importance of the schools, the importance of education, but vastly differing beliefs on how that education should be presented. But there was what was unified within that divisive mindsets, within those divisive mindsets, was that the political agenda should be kept out of things. There was agreement on that, but disagreement within the agreement, if you will. So that's why I worded it that way. There was just a strong agreement, though, among people about that. Then there was another challenge that said funding issues, and these funding issues were brought up among a wide spectrum of things. For example, they said, we need more money from the state to be able to pay teachers, or we need more money from the state to be able to afford better equipment for teaching science, or we need more money from the state to be able to keep up our facilities better, or we need more money from the state to be able to have better equipment and things to support our fine arts programs. Or so there was several ways that funding issues were brought up in different ways that they affect the classrooms, the maintenance and operations, the various ways that funding supports a school district. So I put that together as affecting every area, really, which they do affect every area of the school district. And then, in many ways, this was touched on as well, improving academic performance. Now, some people talked about the district has always had a good track record in academics, and that must be maintained. Some people talked about test scores specifically. Other people said it's not all about test scores, it's about later life success, getting into advanced training, whether it's college or job preparation or whatever, but it's important to turn out graduates who are prepared to succeed in life. But improving academic performance was also discussed as a continuing challenge that needed to be faced. So, that was the challenges. Many other challenges too. And so these are the ones that, after you read 500 of them, and I took extensive notes, and then I tried to coalesce them, if you will. What things kept emerging in different ways. And those were the ones that really rose to the top. And it's interesting, some of these other districts I've worked with, some of these don't come at all. The recruiting, retaining staff, that comes out all over the state. Improving academic performance, that comes out. Some of the other ones, funding issues, some districts don't see that as much as others, because some districts have different access to funds that other districts don't have. So it varies. Questions on that?
I guess I'd have a question for our student members, actually. Seeing these results, do they track with what you think or thought? If you did, I don't know if you did the survey or didn't, but I'm interested to hear kind of your thoughts on what you've seen here.
I would say definitely for some of the highlights, like the good things about it, I could see why people would say teachers, just because, I mean, I value our teachers a lot too, and caring and dedicated, obviously, that definitely comes to mind, just because I have a lot of very connected relationships with my teachers that like just make me feel comfortable in the classroom asking questions, and I don't know, it's definitely more than just like the teachers know your names, and you feel comfortable asking questions, and like you can ask them if you need help on something. And so yeah, I like that was the number one thing, because I agree with that 100%.
Small. Sorry, I'm a little shorter. But yeah, I have to agree with Miranda entirely. I feel like a lot of the negatives are things that we've actually seen improvement on. Like, I remember we were talking about our academic performance, and we went over our testing and everything and how we've actually improved vastly. And so I feel like a lot of it is maybe just not knowing information. But I feel like, yeah, a lot of the positives and the strengths are, you can feel in the schools, and you can definitely feel the staff. So yeah, that's my opinion.
I have also one more thing. So it's interesting because this challenge, the second one, keeping political agendas out of schools, I find that one interesting because just because I take several government classes and like things where political ideas would kind of pop out, but there's like constantly mentioned like both sides so that there's no indoctrination. I mean, bias is everywhere. It's impossible not to have bias in things that you say and things that you teach, but I specifically can recall times when it's like, I know I'm not being indoctrinated because I'm being given both sides of the, and they're very clear about that too, so I wouldn't agree with that one, but.
Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing with us.
Great question.
Yeah.
So next we'll move into, not tonight. You're like, yes, let's move into it now. No, let's, phase 3, as I mentioned before, the board will be, the window for applicants is still open. But, and that closes on, I should know this. I'm in charge of it and I don't know it off the top of my head. April 7th?
Okay. I think it was March 21st.
March, yeah, it's early, March 21st, yeah. Then we'll do a lot of vetting of these applicants. We'll look them over very carefully. We do some background processing. Then once they emerge from the screening process, we do very much further detailed. If you're going to interview someone, then we really look at them very closely then, because we're not going to bother to interview someone then if there's something dubious that comes out. But that's where we'll be moving next.
Okay.
And we'll keep you apprised of that as we go along.
Are there any other questions for Dr. Jorgensen? I do just want to make sure we clarify, if we look at the meetings from, the minutes from February 17th, item 5A2 was the governing board will discuss and may consider approving an online superintendent leadership qualities community survey as a component of the search process to gain input from the community and staff on the leadership profile. That was approved. And following that, we had the section on questions. And this was page 118, I believe, of the minutes, page 117. No, page 118. 5A5, the governing board will discuss and may consider incorporating specific questions into the application process for the position of district superintendent. And there were 4 questions listed, and we chose 3 additional questions for the application.
No, I totally agree with that. This was a different conversation that we had before, where we were going to include those 4 questions. The 4 questions that you were going to put on, if we had a forum, community forum, you said there were 4 questions that you would bring up, and it was that we had agreed to put those 4 questions on the survey instead of having a forum. But obviously it didn't get on there, so we'll deal with what we have.
Okay. But the survey and it really surfaced a lot. It surfaced some of these key issues certainly, and also my conversations with each one of you surfaced what your key issues are as well. And there was definitely commonality, not only among board members of key issues, but also commonality of your key issues with the community, which is good because you are in fact representatives of the community. So I thank you for your kind attention. I thank the community members for your participation in the survey and your very detailed participation in the survey. I feel like for me it was an immersion in Prescott. So and a good immersion in Prescott.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next presentation is from the Nutritional Wellness Committee. Sarah and Amy are here to present to us today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today. For those who do not know me, my name is Sarah Reville, and I am the district's farm-to-school coordinator. You want to introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm Amy Siegler. I am the food service director.
And this is the first year of the newly restructured Wellness Committee. Thanks to the amazing work done by the Student Wellbeing Committee and the Physical Education team, we were able to dedicate a team focused entirely on nutritional wellness. And this resulted in several huge accomplishments, which we will present on today. So next slide here. Oh, there we go. All right. First, I'd just like to highlight how excited Amy and I are to be working together on this committee, and as a result, strengthening the partnership between the food service department and the farm to school program. Our strengthened partnership resulted in receiving the highest level award for the 2023 Farm Fresh Challenge from the Arizona Department of Education during Farm to School Month this year.
In order to complete the challenge, we had to fulfill 3 categories, and those categories were taste, teach, and connect. In order to accomplish this, we had to menu and serve food items that are local to Arizona. Some menu items we already served every day in our cafeterias. The juice we serve at breakfast, the milk we serve at both lunch and breakfast, our sliced bread and tortillas are all produced right here in Arizona. I was even able to get locally grown produce as well from the Department of Defense. We were able to bring in some Gala and Granny Smith apples for the challenge, and both of those are locally grown to Arizona. All of these items were incorporated into the menu during the challenge week. Sarah conducted the taste and teach portion during lunchtime, providing locally grown veggies from the Prescott Farmers Market. One of the tomatoes that we got that we served at Lincoln was actually from a farm in Paulden. We had farmer school taste test events at all 3 of our elementary schools during the challenge week, and we really enjoyed working on this project together, bringing in fresh produce and menu items, as well as educating students on food that is locally grown and produced right here in Arizona. And our hope is that this becomes a yearly tradition moving forward, because this was our first year doing it.
And I just want to point out that only other 6 school districts in the state participated in this Farm Fresh Challenge, and we were among the top to receive the platinum. So, all right. So our biggest goal for this year was to gather information about the status of nutritional wellness services and initiatives in the district from school representatives on our committee. We spent the first 2 meetings going over our WellSat assessment. We gathered valuable information from a variety of school staff regarding such things as school lunch wait times, class rewards involving food, and how much nutrition standards are being covered in the classroom. At our last meeting, we conducted a survey of wellness committee members on how we can improve the food service program and strive for excellence.
According to the staff we surveyed, the quality of food that we serve is good, the menu choices are good, and the staff is efficient. What we found we could improve on is having staff stationed at salad bars and in service lines to assist the younger students at the elementary level. We also found that staff would like more opportunities for SFE to interact with students in the classroom, bringing in more nutritional education to the students. We plan to collaborate with the Farm to School program and the food service program to provide these nutrition education class visits for the following school year.
Then the committee focused on increasing the promotion of the district's food and nutrition program and farm to school initiatives. Amy and I will be working together along with teachers and food service staff to take more photos for the marketing director to share on social media. We also plan to update the Wellness Committee page on the district's website to include meeting dates and times as well as the recordings. By developing more promotional content, we hope to increase awareness of all the amazing services and PUSD programs that the district offers to bolster student nutritional wellness. Promotion is also just another way for our programs to get children excited about making healthy food choices in their daily lives, which is essential to their academic success.
A lot of what we have been working on as a committee this year has been in preparation for the food service audit by the Arizona Department of Education. Every 3 years, we as a department get audited. The Wellness Committee and its policies and procedures are part of that audit. This is the first audit the district has had since the pandemic. I'm currently working with my team, and Brian, of course, to complete all of the requirements for the audit. The audit will be concluded on March 31st. Because of the work the committee has done in the past, this year's audit is already going much smoother thanks to the policies and procedures that we have put in place. Like most audits, the process has helped refresh our priorities for areas that we can still improve on as a committee. While PUSD is meeting all of the minimum guidelines and in areas even exceeding the standards for wellness, there is always more we can do to support our students in leading healthy lives.
So looking towards the future, the last committee meeting we have planned for this school year will be held in the Lincoln Elementary School Garden on March 27th. This meeting will be a celebration of accomplishments made over the school year, as well as an opportunity for the community to provide valuable feedback on school menus. School staff, administrators, students, and parents are encouraged to attend.
This menu feedback session is one of several that we conduct during the school year to ensure that we are serving what students and families want. This information tells us what's working with the menus and what is not, what is trending and what we can improve on that will help drive student participation. We adjust our menus accordingly each year after receiving this feedback. In addition to menu feedback, SFE also conducts a taste testing of new menu items to create excitement and bring awareness to what we offer to students in our cafeterias. As a department and a committee, we always value the ongoing support and feedback from our students. Without them, we of course wouldn't be here.
So that was March 22nd at Lincoln Elementary. What was the time? What was that? Do you have a time on that?
That will be at 3:30.
3:30.
3:30 to 4:30.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to show this awesome picture of Amy and the food service manager at Taylor Hicks when we did our taste test this year. Thank you so much for your time, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Any questions?
Well, I want to publicly thank Amy and Sarah for taking this on. It's required that districts have a nutritional wellness committee, and that they're gathering this feedback, and they've done a great job of trying to get feedback from all staff levels and different schools, and it takes a lot of work to put this together. And I do want to just commend you again on your Platinum Award. Platinum, not bronze, silver, or gold, but
We had to go all the way.
platinum. And just to remind everyone, if they didn't hear this, you have to receive this, you have to serve a minimum of 5 locally sourced meal components. So that's local meaning Arizona or local?
Yes, local Arizona.
Local Arizona. Host a minimum of 2 educational activities, which I know you do the taste testing activities. Of course, we have our school gardens that Sarah brings kiddos out to. Share a minimum of 1 promotional material with the community, and procure at least 1 local item through the USDA.
That's the DOD.
Or Department of Defense.
That we get.
And you did all of that, and I know our kiddos appreciate it. And we have you
Oh,
two
did you get it?
Sweet. Isn't that cool? Really cool.
We also get $1,000 to spend on local produce.
And you have to have pictures and report back to them
Yes.
how you spent that $1,000 on local produce. So Sarah is very clever at finding grants and local donors to provide all kinds of things for our gardens as well as taste tests. But now you have $1,000 that you can actually.
Was that real?
Thank you, guys.
Congratulations. Okay, thank you. That's all of our presentations, non-voting. So next item is information-only items, a summary of current events. Mr. Howard.
Yeah, our Auditor General report just came out statewide, and that we'll have a full presentation on that at our April meeting. But I wanted to preview some great news with you. For the first time in modern history, or that I know of, PUSD basically just got to state average teacher pay. That's without the support of an override. That is a surprise to me, and a huge victory for all of us. And it's a moving target. We have to keep working on that, but that's a piece that the community was involved in. The board has made decisions to get us to that point, and I'm very proud of that. Very proud of that. Can I say the word snow day out loud? Yeah. Kind of gives me the chills. Wow, what a year. I've called a lot of snow days and driven around at 3 a.m. lots of times in my life, but never with the frequency that I have in this last year. So I hope it's over. Can I knock on your gavel over here? I think it's over. And I wanted to update folks. We're still crunching numbers. This is something that we work with Arizona Department of Education on. And so there are days that are required, but there are also hours that are required. And if we can demonstrate that we have met the hours that are required by law, we can work with Arizona Department of Education and possibly waive those days. So no guarantees or no promises yet, but that's why we have not announced yet when makeup days will be. But we've been doing a lot of work crunching those numbers, and they're hopeful. We strategically calendar more hours than are required for purposes like this. So that's good news, and we will keep you updated. Stay tuned. A couple just quick things coming up that we're also excited about moving forward with things. There's a planning and zoning meeting for the Taylor Hicks Teacher Village at the City of Prescott Thursday at 9 a.m. We're excited about seeing that move forward. Our visioning committee is also meeting on Thursday at 4 p.m. at the high school to talk next steps about what a vision for the future of our district and a possible high school and what could happen with Mile High. We'll continue to report to the board on that. And Thursday's a big day. It's all of March is Youth Art Month, but at 2:30, from 2:30 to 4, we will have our opening reception, which is really neat if you can make it. A lot of students will be there. A lot of artwork will be there. We usually have a little musical entertainment at the same time, but that's 2:30 to 4 o'clock at Roof Street Theater in the lobby on Thursday. If you can swing by on that busy day, it's an open house, so you can just step in and take a look at this incredible art that our students do, talk to teachers, talk to kids, and hear some music.
All right, thank you. Governing board reports. Does any members have a
Unhappy
report?
things?
On anything you'd like to report on?
This is happy time? I have just an anecdote, very quick, but a friend of mine has a daughter at PHS. They were down in Tucson a couple weeks ago shopping with Dad, and they ran into 3 basketball players from Tucson who play for Sal Point High School, which we had played in the first round of state. And we beat them, as I'm laughing back there. The 3 basketball players had only wonderful things about coming to Prescott. Despite the fact that they lost, they said that the sportsmanship at our school, fans, players, and students, was absolutely overwhelming, and they just wanted people to know that Prescott was so welcoming, and that just made my heart sing. So that's my good news, happy news.
That's great.
Can I add on to that? I happened to be at the high school talking to our athletic director, Missy Townsend, and they have a bulletin board. If you have a chance, you need to stop by and see. And it's pictures of our athletes just doing amazing things. And maybe, Elle, you can add to this, but it might be a team helping kiddos with physical special needs. It might be teams, kind of high-fiving. And Missy has said, other teams have said that we show really great sportsmanship. And we won an award, I think, recently for our sportsmanship. So the bulletin board has nothing to do with wins. It's all about good character, sportsmanship, and just being good kiddos.
Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, there's something to add. I don't know if you guys know Bobby Yoder at the front office, who works with Missy, but she set that whole thing up. She did an amazing job. It looks beautiful. If you have the time, go ahead and stop in. It's really, really cool.
Any other governing board reports?
Are you gonna cover sports there, Al? All right, I will steal your thunder. Nah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm really proud of our winter sports teams, honestly. They, not only went really far within the state, but, the crowd showed up. There were people within the community that were in the bleachers, and, they were just there to watch a game. They were here to follow the Badgers. We see it in football, we see it in basketball. It's a cool environment. You come into the dome, and it says a lot that we're getting sportsmanship awards, because it wasn't always like that, right? I mean, I think that we've really turned a corner in that, and that we are a welcoming community, and that, our athletes, our student athletes, are great representations. And that really goes from the attitudes that you get from the staff and in our athletic department, parents. We just, obviously, tremendous kids that are coming out of here. Now we're on to spring sports, though, right? We got a little softball. All right, good deal. And I will be heading to this art show. Now we got a flyer that did say it's from 7 o'clock now, because this. I just want to make sure that we're straight on that, Joe. Just check it out. I'm calling you out, buddy.
I gave the wrong one. It's now.
Viewing hours are from 2:30 to
Those are
4.
viewing hours during the week. Thank you.
But
Stan,
is
for
community
clarifying.
from 5 to 7? Is that right, Joe?
5 to 7, thank you. Good
Perfect.
clarification.
Okay.
5 to 7 on Thursday.
Because TJ's artwork's in there, so I'm going.
Oh, we're
All
coming.
right.
Yep. Thanks for clarifying.
You betcha. Thanks.
I had a chance to meet with Mr. Neely at the high school, and we walked around, visited some classes, and just was super impressed with the engagement. Students at all levels. Some of the students are working in groups in the hallways, some are working in groups in the classrooms. STUCO, Student Council, was out walking around taking care of things. And all we saw was the north half of the building. So the next time I'm going to go, we're going to see the south half and see some of the CTED and athletic areas, music areas, those types of things. So hopefully I'll get to do that soon. Also just want to say, this has been a tough winter, and I can't imagine what it's like to make those decisions. So just a public thank you to all the administrators, all the staff that has to keep our sidewalks clear. I don't know what it's like when you have a weather forecast and you have the State Department of Transportation telling you to stay indoors, and you cancel school. And people are upset and they may complain, but their kids are safe. And we haven't had a bus slip off the highway on an icy road when the snow came late. So it's a tough decision. I'm sorry you have to make it, and I'm sorry you have to feel the heat, to all of you, for that. But we appreciate the teachers, the staff, the administration, and leadership in what you do. That's a tough job. So
If I
thank
can
you.
add, our facilities crew, our director, Chris Moody, and I are usually, we're talking a lot the night before, we're talking a lot at 3 o'clock in the morning. And when it gets down to it with those decisions, boy, it just depends on what things start to look like as it starts to get light. But, Chris Moody will say to me, okay, well, I'm ready to do whatever you need, boss. But, if we're not going to call school that day, they've got 2 hours to shovel every entire sidewalk, and then we're calling in contractors to come and clear the parking lots and that type of thing. Those guys came in this last Sunday? They had to clear every campus and every sidewalk on Sunday. They were here for 8 hours, and they're just shoveling as hard as they can, and they're amazing about it. So I know Andy and I have talked about recognizing them a couple times. We're doing that right now, but we'll also do that more formally later. But we just have incredible workers all through our district.
Yeah, thank them for us, please. That's great. That's huge.
Sure will.
Yeah.
Can I do one more sports announcement? I have to give some love to the wrestlers.
Yeah.
Our wrestlers did well, as they always do, but Cody Hanna took second in the state this year, which was unbelievable. He's a senior, and so he's going to go on, I believe, to NAU and do great things for us. And then a kiddo named Wyatt Ruertz, if you know him, he placed third with a broken hand. He wrestled regionals with a broken hand and took second, and then he placed third in the state, and he's a junior, so watch out, he's hungry.
Any other board reports? All right. Ms. Long, do you have a report for us?
Yes. I think I'm going to move over one, if that's okay. Sorry, you okay? Okay. So, going off of sports again, boys basketball did really, really good this year. The season recently ended, sadly, after losing to Mesquite on February 24th, but they ended second in the 4A Grand Canyon region, which is awesome, and an overall of 21 wins and only 4 losses. So, good job, boys. Track and field is coming up. First meet happened on Saturday, March 4th, which was the Buckeye Invitational, and I was hoping Miranda could talk on that, but it's just me, and I think they did good. Next meet is coming up this weekend at the Shadow Ridge Showcase this Saturday, so come out to that. Boys baseball game started this week with a home game yesterday, March 6th, after struggling to recuperate the field after snow. It's that dirt, man, it gets gross. Softball had their first game of the week yesterday versus Deer Valley, and we'll play 2 more games at home on Wednesday and Friday, so come out, please. Tennis, boys and girls tennis played matches at Washington School yesterday, and the boys have an upcoming match versus Lake Havasu tomorrow. Boys volleyball, upcoming rivalry match against Bradshaw Mountain on Thursday, March 9th. So, are you making any more bets this time, Mr. Howard?
I'll have to think about that, but
Okay.
Thursday's going to be a great day.
It is, yeah. So more upcoming dates. Spring break, March 13th through the 19th. Everybody get ready. Wednesday, March 8th, we have Future Freshman Night for all incoming 8th graders. So come to that if you're an incoming 8th grader. Thursday, March 9th, Mr. Howard already brought this up, but we have the Youth Art Month opening art show. That wasn't right. At Roost Street from 5 to 7 for viewers. And then finally, Prescott Band and Orchestra Boosters are throwing an Italian dinner and silent auction from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. in the Prescott High School cafeteria. So shout out to them. Also, one more thing. My friends at PHS Interact Club are asking for used crutches, walkers, and wheelchairs for their Crutches for Africa project that they do every year. So if anyone would be willing to donate to that, if they have any extra laying around in the attic. So that's all from me. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Got one more event for you. After the board meeting tonight, Mile High Middle School's got choir, band, and orchestra, and the high school choir is going to go down and sing with them also. Starts at 7 o'clock, so as soon as we're done here, see you over there.
Okay. Any other items for reports? Okay. Action items. First on the agenda is the consent agenda. Are there any questions about the consent agenda?
I need clarification. On the, I think it's on the certified and classified personnel. We have a pay, usually we stipend the coaches, but we have a couple coaches that are under the, assistant coaches that are under the classified paying that we hired. Can you explain what the difference is?
I sure can. Both are true. We pay a stipend to coaches, but we have to hire them as an employee to do that. And so the folks that you're seeing as new hires are folks that we just recently added to payroll so that we can get them their paycheck for coaching the sports on there.
So they're professional coaches?
They're seasonal employees of the district, yes.
And they coach just one sport?
I'd have to look at the coaches and to confirm that they coach just one sport, but probably because they're just added in the spring, they're probably just spring coaches, an assistant baseball coach, or no.
They're just part-time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, they're people that just work after school, typically from about 3 to, well, it depends. If they go down to Phoenix for a game, they get back at midnight or so. But on a typical day, they might work 3 to 5:30 for us, typically Monday through Friday.
Okay, so they're not teachers?
Those folks who are being added were not already employees, so they would not be teachers, correct. But we have a number of coaches that are teachers and then a number of coaches who aren't as well. Great questions.
Okay.
Yeah, you might see them again with a stipend, but it's just because they're brand new hires and that we're getting your approval that we can hire them.
Oh, I didn't see him in the stipend part, so I just saw him in the higher part. And it, yeah.
That's typically a lump sum, right, that those coaches receive?
Typically, we get paid paychecks over the course of the season.
But there's an amount, so for
There
that
is an amount,
position-
absolutely right, absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of the budget that you're going to be considering tonight includes adjustments to stipends and whatnot. I think we had a chance to brief board members on those things as well, but you're exactly right. Yeah, there's a certain amount that's paid for head coaches at the high school, for assistant head coaches at the high school, head coaches in the middle school, et cetera.
So community coaches get maybe a contract that would say you're going to be paid $4,000 for this period of time. Maybe
Yep.
that's generous, but for this period of time over, 6 paychecks or something.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And I have
that
to say
clear-
that a lot of those coaches, they wind up giving their pay to boosters or back to the school.
right.
A majority of them do, actually.
Did that clarify that for you, Cara?
Yes.
Okay.
My concerned face was that every once in a while, it seems like we're not notified of a hire, it's just put in here, and it's not specified that these are people that we are newly hiring. I understand you can't do all of it, but there was one a couple months ago that I was concerned about, that it wasn't brought to the board and it was just stuck in there. And I feel a little underinformed, that's all.
So occasionally we'll have a person who just works hourly for the district, that's not technically an employee of the district. Yeah, and so they're paid as a contract person for the district. Those don't show up on here, but all the people who are formerly employees of the district do show up on here.
Yeah, I just realized after 2 years that, that the new hires, sometimes it says to fill a new position, or to fill a old position, to fill.
Replacement?
But, a replacement, but then sometimes just new people get stuck in there and I'm realizing now that those are actually new positions that we're putting in, and I wasn't aware of that before.
Whenever it says out to the side in that column status, new, for instance, I'm looking at the classified report right now for this month. The only new one is we've got a new tutor. So that we've got ESSER funds paying for tutors. We've hired
Yeah, most of them I understand.
We've
but
created
I
that new position for a new tutor to add. All the rest are replacements or rehires. It's rare that we have
No,
new
just-
positions throughout the year, and we always bring those to
Just
you.
now I have to know that I have to look at that, pay special attention.
Sure, absolutely. And then ask questions anytime you have questions, either before the board meeting or during the board meeting is great too.
Okay.
You bet.
Any other consent agenda questions? Okay. Then can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as outlined tonight.
I have a question.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. Is there one question before we second?
Yeah, I don't understand maybe Brian, the conflict of interest with the county?
Yes, I can try, and then our colleagues can fill in. We have lots of different agencies around. The Yavapai County Education Service Agency is one of them. And anytime if we share the attorney, there needs to be a conflict of interest waiver on that. And then if something were to occur and that attorney would be needed, then there's steps to have separate representation, I believe. But just so that we both have Dave Paoli as our attorney, a conflict of interest waiver needs to be voted on by the
So
board.
it really didn't have anything to do with you?
No,
Oh, okay, sorry.
it's okay.
I could answer that
listen.
because I was intimately involved, if I may, because that's a great question. Because every school district is assigned a county attorney. Now, we choose to have our own attorney, and in lieu of the county attorney representing the school district, the county attorney has this conflict of interest waiver, so that when we bring in our new attorney or our own attorney, there is no conflict of interest, and the county attorney waives all of that conflict. And that's the purpose for that. And then we can sign contracts after this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And it's good that you brought it up, because we'll see these often with different topics, like this is E-rate and other services that we share, but you'll see this often, like every couple months, there'll be a similar one.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Bet.
Did I answer that correctly?
You did a good job, Brian.
Well, thanks, I appreciate it.
I was impressed.
I
Any other questions?
So needy.
So then I'll ask again, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll try again. I would like to make a motion to consider approving the consent agenda as presented.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And that passes. Okay. Study and voting session. First on the list is discussion and motion to approve and ratify an IGA with the Mountain Institute Career Technical Education Program. Mr. Clever.
Mr. President, board members, Mr. Superintendent, thank you for having us tonight. My name is Dave Clever. I am the board representative on the governing board of Mountain Institute, CTED. I have with me tonight Mr. Cisco Ortiz, who is the CTE director for PHS, and Mr. Bill Steitler, who is our superintendent. My part will be brief. I just want to say thank you for considering renewing the IGA between our two districts. And give you a quick overview of who we are, if you're not familiar with Mountain Institute. So we were created in 2009 by a voter referendum to develop and support CTE programs in western Yavapai County. Prescott is one of 7 member districts, each of which have their own CTE programs, which we help fund. Additionally, we have what I call main campus programs, which are available to all eligible high school students in our district, including charter schools. Mr. Ortiz will have basically more details, so I'm just here to kick it off and introduce you all to myself, and you can always reach out to me. I am essentially your counterpart. I am voted with the same school district you are. Each one of our member districts has a representative elected in their respective districts. Before I hand it off, I want to say it's exciting to be part of Mountain Institute. Our programs have grown in popularity to a point to we are now at capacity in most of our programs. And as Bill will allude to, we are in expansion mode, adding new programs as we speak. So with that, I will hand it over to Cisco. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Francisco Nicolas Ortiz y Davis. For those of you who do, are probably shaking your heads or rolling your eyes because you've heard that a million times before, right?
This is true.
Wanted to go over, introduce myself, because there are some new board members who may or may not know about CTE at Prescott High School. So I wanted to go over the opportunities and benefits for our students at PHS in CTE, talk about our partnerships in business and industry, each one of our programs, and then challenges, solutions, talk a little bit about the IGA, and then conclude and ask for questions. So these are the opportunities for our students at Prescott High School. So on the left-hand side are the programs that we have, they're called satellite programs, but these are the programs that are local that our students can take at PHS. Business management, digital communications, film and TV, automotive technology, network technologies and cybersecurity, Air Force JROTC, which next month you'll hear a little bit more detail about our JROTC program, animation, which includes both stop motion and digital animation, sports medicine, fashion design and merchandising. We're right now transitioning into software and app development from computer science. So we have students that are learning to program in Python and create applications for both mobile devices as well as for desktops. And in development, we have approval from the MICTED board to start working on a law and public safety program for those students who are interested in pursuing a career in law enforcement. We're working with Amy Bonney, our chief of police, and trying to get that rolling. Early childhood education and stagecraft, and those are two. We're transitioning over our child development course into that early childhood education, and then we do have a technical theater that goes along with our drama department and moving that into the CTE world for stagecraft. Now, this list of 24 programs on the right-hand side are all programs that are available to our students where they can take off campus at the central campus at the CTEC out on Ruger Road by the airport. A number of these are new programs that have just been added. They'll be added for the 23-24 school year, and a number of them are online, including medical office assistant, medical records technician, behavioral health technician, organizational management. So many opportunities for our students to be able to participate in these programs. Now, the benefits for them. The cost to them is zero for our students to be able to participate in all of these programs. They, and I always tell them, a semi-consequence-free environment, that they can do some career exploration. And I always tell them that it's just as important for them to identify what they don't want to do as what they do want to do, right? Because then they're not spending thousands of dollars in post-secondary education trying to decide where they want to land. Preparation for the workforce, which includes valuable skills that they learn in these programs, not only the technical skills that they'll need in order to be successful in the medical industry, in IT, in a number of the different areas where they study, but also the professional skills that they'll need to just be successful as an employee, right? Just a couple of statistics that CTE students who participate and complete programs in CTE are 10% more likely to graduate, as well as 75% within the 4 years that they've completed the program after they've graduated high school enroll in some sort of post-secondary education, whether that's technical school, 2-year college, or 4-year university. While they're in these programs, they have opportunities for college credit. In fact, like with our automotive program, they can earn up to 20 college credits through the 3 years of that program. And industry certifications, like in the automotive, ASC certifications, Adobe, things like that, that they can take right into industry. And real-world examples of work-based learning. So we met with Marty earlier this school year to talk about really formalizing a work-based learning program so that students have the opportunity to go off campus in the afternoons, work for businesses in the area, provide their what they've learned, apply those in a real-world situation, and also get high school credit for them. A few stats that I wanted to go over. We have 426 students at Prescott High School that are enrolled in CTE. 43 of them are in their second year and getting ready to take what we call our technical skills assessment, the end of program certification. 20 of those are enrolled at MICTED programs where they go off campus in the afternoon or in the morning, and they take those classes at the central campus or at the Allied Health, also at the agribusiness in Chino. And so far, I anticipate this to grow, but we already have 30 on an interest list so far to enroll in the fall semester for 23-24 for these programs. We celebrated CTE month at PHS recently, increasing CTE awareness for our students with video announcements, daily announcements, encouraging them to reach out to their counselors, reach out to me so that they can find out more about their opportunities with CTE at PHS. We did have a group of students that went out to CTEC and visited, took a look at presentations from all of the programs that are available to them out there. We had tables set up during lunch to highlight the individual programs at Prescott High School from our teachers that went out and talked to the students to kind of recruit them and build their own programs. We did have to postpone for weather a visit from Universal Technical Institute. This was pretty popular last week. They had, or last year when we had them out, they had Nicolas Cage's GTO out there and a welding, like a virtual welding display, things like that for the students to be able to participate in. And you'll hear more about this next month, is Giarazzi went out to Luke Air Force Base and did a visit. So collaboration with business and industry. And so there are a number of different ways that our programs interact with business locally. We do have an advisory council for CTE, and I will invite any of you to come and participate in our CTE advisory council. We meet twice a year, once in the fall and once in the spring. Our next meeting is on April 6th. In addition to the advisory council, we're also going to convene what we call our Comprehensive Local Needs Assessment, CLNA, which are a more formalized set of questions that we ask the community in order to be able to help guide our programs. And this is a requirement of Perkins funding for our grant. We also ask for assistance from businesses in the community to help develop our work-based learning opportunities. Right? We already have some partnerships with businesses in the area. Yavapai College Film and Media Arts, Helen Stevenson has been on our board for a while, and providing opportunities for our animation students as well as our Badger Media students to participate in productions, movie productions that are in the area, things like that. Giarazzi, we just had a blood drive today, and so they partner with Native Air. Automotive, so Discount Tire reaches out to us to ask for students, who do you have, who can help us in our shop, and so on. So common challenges that districts face in implementing CTE programs funding: teacher shortages. We're losing a business teacher again this year. We're looking at replacing that teacher as well. So the IGA that we have with MIC TED is very important in order to be able to provide us funding to help support these programs, to the tune of this year about $380,000 for our programs. So that's my ask, is that we help support this IGA. So importance for CTE students themselves, to be able to provide them the opportunities, the experiences that they have to be better prepared to go into the workforce, to be better prepared to go into post-secondary education, and to thank you for your time, consideration, and continued support for CTE. So I'll ask what questions you have.
Quick question, college credit through which school?
Yavapai College.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so we do have a partnership with YC, and most all of the programs that the students have at the central campus, and I would say about 60 to 70% of the programs that we have as satellite programs at PHS do offer dual enrollment with Yavapai College.
Do you have data on where our students are at that after they finish? Like, do we know where in the community they're going, where they might take these skills that they've learned, and where they're at?
So it's a good question, and it's one of the requirements that we have for our reporting to Arizona Department of Education for placement. So it is up to the individual teachers to reach out to these students the year after they've graduated to find out where their placements are, and then we upload all that information to ADE. So I can definitely provide that. We ask if they go into post-secondary education. We ask about whether they go right into the workforce, into missions with their church, other organizations like Greenpeace and things like that they may participate in. So we do follow them. Yeah. It can get a little challenging trying to catch up with them. Sure. So we do have a number of different ways, whether we've collected their contact information when they graduate, social media, other ways that we can.
But there should be some data that maybe we could gather from your website or something to
yeah, so I most definitely can provide that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
I have a question. First of all, when is that CTE meeting?
April 6th. So I can provide that information to the board as well.
Oh, thank you.
Send the
And that'd be out
invitation.
on Ruger?
That'll be actually at PHS. We hold that in the library at PHS.
Okay, if you had anything in the world for this, what kind of programs do you feel you need?
Well, the programs that we currently have right now, I think are very well needed. I'm really particularly interested in getting the law and public safety program started. I know that there is such a need for law enforcement officers as well as the support personnel for law enforcement in dispatching, in records, things like that. And I think that a law and public safety program would go well to be able to help kind of provide some bench strength, especially in our own community.
I agree. I'm a retired dispatcher. So, but I was going to pre-law school, so courts, corrections with our new Justice Center, I would think that would be something that we would depend on you for. And fire science, I didn't see that up there.
So fire science is a program that not on PHS campus, but is available to our students at the central campus.
Okay.
So they can, by the time they're done with that program, they'll have Fire 1 and 2 done, as well as they would just need to take the EMT, and they could be hired by any agency in the state.
Excellent.
So having a member attend or be on your advisory council, I'd like to see us have a liaison with CTE in some way, or with the Mountain Institute. You know, I think that would be fantastic if there's interest.
Absolutely. We would love to have it.
Mm-hmm. That would be great. So yeah, if we can be in touch and get somebody that works closely with you, that would
I'll
be
make sure to get the
fantastic.
invitation out.
Yeah, I'd be glad to.
All right, and with that, and if there
Is Bill following you at all? Or
He
what,
is.
What are we
Yes,
going to
he
cover,
is.
Bill? Okay. Well, I just like for you to kind of go over the history. We have not had a JTED or CTED for very long. And if you could go back to the list of the programs, this isn't wood shop. This isn't shop class anymore, right?
Right.
So it's tremendous what you guys do. And not only on our campus, but out on the Apply campus. Bill, when you do come up, can we talk about ADM and how you're funded and things like that as well? Okay, great. All right.
I will add that, what used to be vocational education and what I grew up with, it really meant a student following one path or another, right? And what we've found through data as well as just anecdotal information is that it's both. And whether or not a student decides to go into a career for which they've studied in high school at CTE, they could go into a post-secondary education situation, not use that, but still not have to go into entry-level positions and make a higher wage, work their way through school with skills that they've used. So.
I have, when they take these classes, do they count for their credits to graduate?
It
Like,
does.
do these
Yes, so it does.
for
It
the-
does count as CTE credits for them to graduate.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'd like to say we went and toured the facility out there, our community center did, and it was really impressive to see the houses being, set up that, I don't know what you call them.
Construction technology, so the
yeah,
second year, the 3D house printing, that's something
That is
interesting.
amazing. And everything down there, from welding and the graphic arts, I think it was, I was really impressed. It's
Yeah,
really great.
you move from classroom to classroom, and it's a whole different world in each one.
Yes, absolutely.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Is that early childhood education program going to interface with our preschool at all, or is there any?
That's the hope, is that we will use Discovery Gardens as the lab for students to be able to do their practical application in.
And grow our own teachers from that?
That's the hope, right? And so not only early childhood education, but education professions that they can take online right now with the CTEC is designed to grow new teachers.
Let me know how I can help.
Absolutely. All right, and I'll hand it to Bill.
Bill.
Mr. President and Governing Board, appreciate y'all's time tonight. When we're looking at the CTEDs, as Mr. Clever had mentioned, this was a voter referendum from 2009. And the process has been through the state, if you understand the CTED model, basically all CTE program ultimately routes through us. So for a program to be sponsored on a high school campus, basically we go through the process of working with ADE, vet the program, make sure that it meets state standards, has the requirements in place to be a quality program. By going through that process, the program is approved, and then the state provides additional funding that is outside of your standard base level funding for the students who are in that program. So for satellite programming, that is what Prescott is, we receive a quarter of an ADM additional funding. Part of that is then through the IGA, the dollars are allocated to the district, and it depends on how the CTED chooses to work with their member school districts. The approach that was in place prior to me getting here, and the one that I agree with though, is that we pass those dollars directly through to the districts based on the ADM that they're generating through their programming. So in Yavapai County, we work with all 7 high school districts in western Yavapai County. So Baghdad, Prescott, Dewey Humboldt, Mare, Seligman, Ash Fork. Those are all districts that are part of the CTED, and within Yavapai County, we pass through, rounded up, about $1.5 million to support programming on the high school campuses. That is not inclusive of what we do at the central campus programming. One of our jobs is to look at what is the need within the communities that we serve, and then try to develop programming that will meet that need. Also look at programming that's in place, try to ensure that that programming is meeting the training needs for the community. For example, it's not only pass-through dollars, but when a program is upstarted, a district will turn to us and ask what type of additional support we can provide for that program upstart. So when y'all started sports medicine, when you looked at the coding programs, we actually stepped in, provided equipment, materials, other on top of the pass-through dollars that we provide to the member school districts based on the registrations within their district. So for us, it is trying to facilitate maintaining top level programs that makes a student competitive if they're going to enter into a program. The other thing is that we work with the districts based on their need, but we also work within the community based on the needs of industry, and then we try to help facilitate those needs. For example, you were talking about fire services. We have that program, but actually an outshoot of that was the fact that wildland fire is part of that program. Yes. But Prescott National Forest and the Forestry Service are having a hard time filling those positions. In northern Arizona, they are currently short 169 wildland firefighters going into this fire season. Took about 18 months working with the Forestry Service. We ran our first class of wildland certification only students. On December 3rd, they finished up their program. They got their certification through the Forestry Service. 6 of them have already been hired, and the Forestry Service is looking at moving into round 2 of their hiring process. So, and then we took the additional step working with the Forestry Service. We filed for a local occupational program. That's a special filing with the state. So now another CTED or district anywhere within the state can adopt that local occupational program working with the Forestry Service. So the Forestry Service is looking at how to implement and duplicate across the state. So there again, we're always looking at what the need is. We just got through, we'll be opening up vet assisting this fall. It'll be the first time that type of program has been offered, but that was a direct connection with Yavapai Humane Society and the current need within the county to service that industry. The importance of the IGA is that for us to support and provide the additional dollars and services to a member school district, we basically have to have the IGA in place to pass those dollars through and to provide that support.
Any questions?
Can I share a 45-second CTE success story?
Yes.
Okay, I promise it'll be short because I know we've got a lot to go over tonight. So we have 5 children that graduated from Prescott High School, my wife and I, and they all have their own talents and interests and whatnot. If they had asked us, Mom and Dad, what should we do? We would have told them, you have to be a teacher. None of them decided to do that yet, but at any rate, one of them had the opportunity to take this CTE program at Prescott High School in computer networking, and he found that he loved it. And he went through the 2 years, did well on the testing, got a certificate. He would have been qualified to go into kind of a low-level IT help type of thing, and decided instead of that, he was interested in doing what he'd always planned on, which is going to university. So he did, and he used what he learned in his CTE programs as a springboard to major in electrical engineering with a software emphasis. Did a terrific job with that. His first job out of university with that, and it goes back to his CTE kind of roots there. I think at that point I'd been in education for 25 years, and he went to electrical engineering for his first year. He made more than I did. So we were really excited for him. I was an administrator at that point, by the way.
Just one question on the funding side of it. I just want to be sure I'm understanding and that everybody understands. The money that is passed through, that is money from the state that we receive an additional quarter ADM for each student enrolled in the courses that are offered at PHS.
The dollars are passed through to the CTED, and then through the IGA, we then pass those dollars through to you. And the CTED retains 30% of that additional ADM, and the district gets 70% of those additional funds. Okay. We're basically charged by the state to do oversight and ensure that programs are maintaining state standards, quality and compliance. It kind of, we're the go-between between ADE and the member school districts.
Okay. So the funding that we talked about, the $380,000, that's what we're referring to here. That's the money that's coming
correct.
To PUSD to support these programs.
Correct.
In schools. Okay. So it's a gain. I just want to be sure everybody understands this is a gain for our district.
And then a prime example is, there again, we provided a lot of the equipment for your sports medicine, right. For the implementation of your coding and programming. We spent $20,000 for the teacher training and professional development for the development of that program. Okay. Those were 2 just in the past year.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? And I failed to ask if there were any speakers. Okay, thank you. So if there are no further questions, we do have a voting item, which is to consider approving and ratifying the intergovernmental agreement with Mountain Institute Career Technical Education District for career and technical education courses as presented.
I'll move that.
Okay, so it's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all for
And
your
please, let's stay in touch. I'd like to get this
Partnership.
formalized and keep in contact closely with you.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing we can do is we also run what we call the Mountain Advisory Committee. So that is actually a group that comes together and represents all the districts within western Yavapai County. that might be a good place to determine a representative.
Okay.
And then we can include them in that, and we look at registration, a lot of things that impact CTE for every district.
Great.
So,
Thank you.
be more than happy to do that.
And just to reiterate, Dave Clever is the board member that represents PUSD. And so all of us can lean on Dave and check in with Dave on how things are going and how we can support the partnership, so.
Yeah, absolutely, and I was going to suggest if you want to come to one of our board meetings, you're welcome to, or watch it live. That is usually at the main campus, so it's a long drive that late at night when we get out, but, so I recommend watching it live, but it is broadcasted as well, so, anyway, thank you.
These are fun.
Yeah.
It's a long drive.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate you. Okay. Moving on, item number 2 in our voting session is to consider approving the 2023-24 budget package based on enrollment projections as outlined. Mr. Moore.
All right. So we started showing this document in the January meeting where it was blank, and I showed an example from last year. And then we started filling in the things that we knew and the things that we were estimating, and now it's pretty much a solid budget package. The only thing that we didn't know at the time, and we also sat in one-on-ones with our governing board members, with administration, was our increase to our medical expense, and it did turn out to be 9%. Sarah, can you blow it up a little bit?
Oh, that's better.
So Annie, just to recap, the left-hand side are the fixed M&O increases and decreases. Specifically, the increase to Arizona State Retirement System, minimum wage impact, which once again is a non-funded mandate. We don't get any extra money from that from the state. Also, we always predict enrollment flat, so we don't say we're going to have a decrease of student. We also say we don't have an increase. It's a very conservative approach. The legislation is bound to give us the lesser of the two of the consumer price index, which is inflation, and it was 8.4% or 2%, so we can pretty much guarantee that we're going to get the 2%. We did have an increase in our ADM this year that we did not budget for, and that's a product of last year, us saying that we are going to be flat on ADM. Well, we have 217 ADM more than what we budgeted for, and so that is going to give us a huge portion of what our middle column is, and that is our recommendations specifically for raises. And what we're recommending is a 4% raise across all staff members within the district. And then we also have some reoccurring M&O increase position restructures. I inserted the word reoccurring so that you know that these are not one-time positions for next year that we're recommending. They're reoccurring until it's deemed they're not needed by administration. And we did go over those positions in our one-on-one sit-downs, and if you have any questions, we can clarify. And then we always look at efficiencies in the district from a staffing model, and Granite Mountain does have one teaching position that is not needed due to the 5th grade rolling up into 6th grade and only needing 8 teaching positions rather than the 9. This is not a reduction in force position. This will be reduced by attrition, by retirement. And ultimately, on the right-hand side, we want it to be a net zero. You can't see it just yet, but you know it's there. And that it is. And so this is our budget package. It's a philosophical vote for the governing board. This is not something the state mandates. The actual budget is proposed and adopted in June and July, and it breaks down every dollar of where we're budgeting to spend. But this does allow us to get contracts out as of, if it's a yes vote, tomorrow, and we can then post positions, start hiring, and be the first on the front line to get good quality candidates for next year in our vacancies. So, questions, clarifications, anything that the governing board would like to say that I can answer? I'm here.
So Joe, you said that we reached the state average as far as salary without even this considered, correct?
Right, but
I know, it keeps on moving.
Yeah, everybody, everybody wants to give a raise, which is where my doubt has been in the past. Like, we give a 5% raise, does everyone else? But that's where my surprise was, is that I don't think it's maybe been a priority across the state as much as it has been here, especially when many districts have overrides producing a lot of this money, and we do not. And so,
Just
it does not include that, but every year it's a new competition, so.
Okay.
1 year from now, the Auditor General report will come out and compare what our average teacher salary for this year, and it includes 301. Just so you know, last year, the fiscal year 21 or the 21-22 school year, PUSD, including 301, the average teacher pay was $58,366, and the state average was $59,059. It was $693 more than where PUSD's average pay is. And this 4% raise will hopefully add to that, and even maybe we'll pass it. It just depends on what the state average does when it comes to raises. But like Mr. Howard said, lots of districts rely on community support in the form of overrides in order to increase their staff pay.
It wasn't that many years ago that we were 15% below the state average in the lowest paid state in the United States of America. Now we're the third lowest paid state in the United States of America, and we are 98.8% of the state average. That's pretty exciting.
And I just add one thing. When I first applied for a job in PUSD, it was 1983. Rod Cordes was hiring at that point, and I was told to take into account the pine trees. The pine trees would make a difference.
We call that the pine tree tax.
This to me is so exciting because this didn't happen when I was teaching in PUSD. It's pretty awesome.
Well, you've heard me often refer to our proactive budgeting philosophy. It's a philosophy. You've all seen the piece of paper that outlines that philosophy. But one of the first things that it says is that we should do our best to give a raise every year, even if we have to cut to do that. And we have had to do that sometimes in the past. We're in a position where we don't have to cut to give that raise right now. We've balanced it out, and that's how it's been the last few years. But I think it just has to always remain a priority. It's hard work to stay in that game at all.
Other questions?
Brian, does this get us down to, so the 8% carry forward that we're trying to, that's our goal, right? Does this get us there, or we're still well above even that?
We're at, going into this year, we're at that 3.9 million mark. These are reoccurring dollars, and so in the last 4 years or so, we've had a line item that has said we will lean on carry forward and see how it goes down, and in those years it continue to go up due to our efficiencies in our spending. This year is the first year it did go down, and so this does not, and it went down by about 700,000 to 3.9. So this does not lean on carry forward whatsoever.
It's a zero net, right?
Correct, and so everything given equal, when we're done with our spending this year, it will be $700,000 less again, and then the next year until we get to settle to about 2 million, which is a really healthy carry forward, and we would have to then back that 700,000 off through looking at efficiencies again and cuts, so that we don't want to continue to go down to zero. That's not healthy.
Well, I'm hoping that we could cut some administrative costs. I met with Tom Horn this last weekend, and right now we're at, 11.6 something for overhead?
No, so to give you some administrative costs so that you know, once again, Auditor General report just came out last week for this, not this year, but the previous year. Some administrative costs is we are compared to 13 districts across the state. They're called an operating peer group. For the last 6 years, PUSD has either been low in administration per pupil when compared to our peer group, or very low. Out of the 5 years, 5 were low, 1 was very low. We operate at about 10% of our operating budget is administration, which is, once again, compared to our peer groups, is low. And I understand when it comes to getting as much money to our teachers, in which I believe being $693 less than the state average, we've been pretty successful at that. But it also is a balance to retaining and recruiting the management within the districts. And I think we've also been successful at that by having a philosophy that when we give a raise, it's across the board. We look at our salary schedules, because when we have an administrator retire, we need to recruit good folks. Unfortunately, losing Mr. Howard, and we need a superintendent that's going to continue the great things in the district. So when it comes to administration, we have had the across-the-board raise, but we are, when it comes to the nation on principal pay, what's our ranking on a nation-wise?
Yeah, that's a great question. So if we were one of the lowest in, say, Connecticut, that might not be great shakes, or in Michigan, that may not be great shakes, but given that we have among the lowest administrative costs in the state of Arizona, that's really saying something. Arizona, according to the National Center for Education Statistics, is 42nd in administrative pay. So we're right toward the bottom of the nation, and PUSD is right toward the bottom of that state. So I'm not sure that there's a strong argument to be made that our administrators are overpaid.
And what is our student count? I thought you said it was like 4,000.
It's just under 4,000 today. It's as of this morning.
Is that what came in with the 100-day reporting? And
The 100th day is ADM. That's how we're funded. It's not head count.
oh, okay.
I can tell you head count as of today, though. Give me 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Pardon?
I can tell you today's head count as of this moment, if you're interested, if you give me 30 seconds.
Linda, did you say that the state superintendent had a recommendation for Prescott Unified School District?
Not for Prescott,
Oh,
no.
okay.
I didn't ask him deliberately, but he wants it lowered. He's thinking 5% or less.
In our school district, he recommended that?
In the state of Arizona.
Oh, okay.
Administrative costs for a district, 5% or less?
Yes.
And we're already among
That's
the
what
lowest in
he's
the nation.
gearing
He thinks we
towards.
should go lower. That's an interesting point of view.
It just, when it comes to just the costs of our administrators, I can tell you, if we were to go from 10% to 5%, we would have campuses without principals, and we definitely wouldn't have administrative assistant principals, because we would be cutting we wouldn't have transportation director. We would be cutting in half. When it comes to our administration and this chart, that's okay. Just kind of because most of our money goes to support staff. Out of our proposed raises, the administration, which is the principals and assistant principals across the district, basically out of 900,000 of the raises, it's 57,000. If we were to eliminate that, Linda, and have the principals and assistant principals get $0 of a raise next year, you would think, wow, that would have a huge impact. And boy, that would get us really close to what Tom Horn is saying. If we did that and didn't give the administrators a single penny more next year, the teachers would get 0.22% more of a raise, and that equates to $2.97 per paycheck net. That's what administrators not getting any pay would be. Now, I would think when it comes to $2.97 a paycheck less for a teacher, and that's for a teacher making $45,000 as an average, and that doesn't include the 301. That's just their contract amount. I would think having good administrators at the forefront of being educational leaders, that most of our teachers would say that they're hardworking as well, and having administration not get a raise would be a morale issue, as well as a statement to administration that wouldn't be positive in the light of PUSD.
But our administrators have gotten raises
Just like every staff member.
continuously for the last.
Correct.
When?
Just like every staff member has.
Yeah, but they're much better paid than our teachers are, and we really want to attract teachers and make it so that they can really be proud of working here, instead of making less than a school nurse who puts a Band-Aid on a boo-boo, you know.
We can give you averages when it comes to support staff as well. Like I said.
hope you don't think our nurses just put Band-Aids on boo-boos.
I know
Hopefully
what
they're not
they
listening
do.
tonight.
I know what they
Or the
do, but they
administrators.
So we
don't
have-
work.
We have
We have
very
hard
medically
aid.
fragile students that they attend to.
Pardon? Okay, with my hearing aids, I can't hear people
We
all
have
at once.
lots of medically fragile students that are in the care of our, I think, 8 nurses across the district. And if we
These are
get,
nurses with credentials. These are not people hired off the street.
Teachers have credentials.
Teachers have credentials.
Yeah.
Nurses have nursing credentials. And a nurse that works in the community is likely making more than what a nurse in the schools is making.
And we're in the business of education is where my support goes.
And we have
So
sick kids.
I want to support our teachers. I always
I
have.
understand.
Okay.
I understand. I want to support all of our staff.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm not real fond that we're now assuming all of the psychologists and all of those medical people that were handled on a grant before. Why are we doing that?
I'm going to need you to
100 what is it?
rephrase.
All the social, emotional, all those, that bottom line there.
The support
Psychologists, SLP, OT,
Those are required
all
by
those
special education
120.
law.
Almost all of those positions are M&O. They're not grants.
They're not, yeah, right, but they were covered by the grant last year, right? COVID money?
You're talking a select few positions that we decided to fund by ESSER money, that after next year, when ESSER money goes away, it will be reanalyzed by administration on whether or not those positions need to continue. And if they do, they will come in the form of this budget package, and they would be underneath the restructure positions. But when it comes to those raises, those are M&O positions. And then also being conservative with our budgeting, the grants have a ceiling. And so if we are giving raises that all staff members are getting, if there is a staff member that is funded through a grant, we're maximizing how much that grant is spending. If that grant doesn't go up, where does the raise come from? Well, it comes from M&O, so we have to budget for it.
But that's a different, grant is a whole different budget that's not depicted on.
No, this is M&O positions.
I would just point out, everything on here are the same positions as last year, except for the one that says position restructures. Those are the new recommendations. All of the rest are maintaining the staff that we've had, not just last year, but probably about 5-6 years here.
So the plan that a student and a parent and all of those professional workers have is called the what again?
It's called what?
What is that plan called?
IEP
An
plan.
IEP, thank you. So an individual education program, and that's a requirement to have a speech language pathologist, an occupational therapist,
you need
a physical therapist, a school psychologist, and you're mandated by state to provide those services, and that's what we're covering, correct?
Correct.
And federal.
And federal.
And federal.
Are there any other questions?
How much, about the teacher salary, 48.6, is that what we're talking?
Nope.
Depending on their points or something?
The average teacher's pay for last year was $58,366.
Okay.
Does that include the benefits?
Yep.
Includes all the benefits?
That is their gross pay that they have.
Not include benefits?
Correct. That's without.
So they have to pay federal taxes, state taxes, and they do have to pay into the Arizona State Retirement System. An employee's percentage deduction from their gross, just based on non-voluntary things, is about 22%.
22%?
Yeah. Arizona State Retirement System is 12 in itself. And we have one of the healthiest retirement systems in the nation. And it's good to work a profession and have a pension.
And
So
then
they get-
USD matches that. And
Correct.
That's required by law that public schools match that. Charter schools don't have to, but
Right.
public
right.
schools.
So they get the retirement system, medical, what's it, about $20,000?
Medical is our expense, it's not the employee's expense, and that is about, for next year, it'll be a little over 10,000 per, 10,250, is it?
What is it?
10,250 will be our, every employee who is over 30 hours a week qualifies for health insurance, and the PUSD pays for 100% of that.
Okay.
So, which is great because, you know, a lot of the intangibles, teachers get a paycheck, parapros get a paycheck, hardworking nurses get a paycheck, and what they don't see is that they're getting a $10,000 benefit for being employed within PUSD, and we don't pass any of that cost like some districts in Arizona. Some say 10,000, we just can't budget for that. In order to give a raise, we have to pass some of that cost off to employees. We have not done that. And so technically that is a $10,000 benefit that they're getting. And so they have $58,000 as their average pay. Technically, it's $68,000 because they're getting a $10,000. We also contribute 12% to the Arizona State Retirement System. And if they stay long enough to retire, they would get a pension, which is fantastic. Miss Jane can attest to that. If they don't retire and they be vested, they do get that money as well.
Right.
So they get their employee and the employer match if they become vested with the state. That's also a wonderful benefit, and they make $58,000. That's over about $6,000 we're putting into the state retirement system on their behalf that they'll have access to at a later date.
Yeah.
Cara, you just asked a really good question a moment ago. So the $58,366 is the cash salary that a person gross, right? Absolutely. Before taxes, before those other things are taken out, that's how much the person makes in salary in 301. And then there's benefits on top of that, and the total amount per teacher of compensation per year. We do a report every year, a total compensation report for every staff member. The average for teachers is just north of $70,000 a year.
So that's gross pay
That's
altogether?
Gross pay and benefits, yes,
Okay.
altogether. On average, there's people who make more than that, people who make less than that, but that's the
Sure, yeah. Okay. Can you get this to us, like, throughout the year then, and make sure that we're getting these updates instead of getting it like a couple weeks before that we have to vote on it?
We first showed this to you the beginning of January, which was 12 days before the 100th day. We cannot do any budgeting until we know what our 100th day is. I'm running numbers on student enrollment as early as late November. I could pass that information to you, which won't translate specifically into dollars.
Smaller bites would be so much nicer.
Remember, it used to be in June when it's mandated by the state, but we've moved it to starting it in January so that the board could take a look at this philosophically so we could move forward with contracts and any other new plans that we have for the year.
Yeah,
So it's kind of rare to do it this early.
It is.
That's why we do the whole proactive budgeting piece.
We're at the forefront of doing it as early, and other districts that are in competition for employees are doing it about the same time. You know, given we start talking about budgeting in the January meeting, so January, the February, the governing board retreat, the one-on-ones, and then now, which this was posted on Friday, in which this is the 5th time. I don't know how much more we could present it in front after 3 months.
As long as we are.
Yeah.
I need it in smaller bites.
And next year, it'll be more familiar. This is overwhelming.
It is that.
And it takes a lot of trust that we're doing this well, but it'll be easier next year.
And is it because June, July, because legislature has to go in sine die before we can do anything?
There's date stipulations. Don't know exactly where they came in, except for the fiscal year starts July 1st.
Yeah.
And so by July 15th, the governing board needs to vote on the adopted budget. And 15 days before that is when the proposed budget has, minimum 15 days has to go in front of the governing board. It also requires to be able to have the public view it and have public comment if they want. Those are dates set by school finance and ADE. You'll need to ask them why those dates are what they are.
And then every single month we do, in our information and discussion items, a school summary budget that's attached to the board agenda and is an item every month.
And we all are open to speak to you at any point in time.
Yes, even you, Andy.
I appreciate that.
It's nice.
I know.
Any other questions on the budget?
It is a lot to get your head around. You're 100% right. This is hard work.
Any other questions? Okay. Then can we get a motion to approve the 2023-24 budget package based on enrollment projections, increases, decreases, and salary increase options as outlined in the attachment FY24 proposed budget package as presented?
So moved.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
I've been requested to say no. Sorry.
Okay, so the motion
I
passes.
don't understand requested.
To say no to the budget the way it is.
What do you mean you
May we
say
ask
requested?
who suggested, who advised you to say no?
Let's,
May we ask who that was?
No.
let's move on.
Okay, let's move on.
Our next item is to consider approving an August 2023 return to work bonus for all Prescott Unified School District employees. Mr. Tenney.
All right. I need to stand up anyway, if that's all right, so I will stand right here. These next two items I get to go over again with you. We brought these up as we met in one-on-ones, but if you've got additional questions that you want to ask because you need clarification about things or you want things presented to public, that is awesome as well. So the first of them is a return to work bonus. I have here in my left hand the results that came out in the last month from the Arizona School Personnel Administrators Association, or ASPA. They do a survey twice a year of all school districts regarding where they're at with their staffing. There are 200 and, help me out, Brian, 220-something districts, 240-something districts? I can't remember. We're going to say 220-something districts in Arizona. And of those districts, 194 got back with ASPA on this. So this is not all districts, but it certainly represents the majority of districts and kids in Arizona. And as of January, so a month and a half ago, there were sadly 2,891 teacher positions unfilled in the middle of the school year in Arizona. We are really, really, really lucky. Now, I'll tell you, those statistics include, none of those classes just have kids in them with no teacher. It's not like the kids are, wandering through the hallways like feral cats or something like that, right? We come up with ways to deal with this. We combine classes, we do overloads for people, we hire people as long-term substitutes to take care of a class, et cetera. Of those 2,891 positions, 6.5 of them are in PUSD. And 5 of them are filled by long-term substitutes right now, and 1.5 of them are filled by teachers on overloads. That's how we're taking care of things here. So, long story short, we're in great shape compared to the rest of the states, but there are little cracks in the dam, so to speak. We're not in the shape that we were 5 or 6 years ago in terms of recruiting and retaining. And one of the things that that many school districts started to do as ESSER funds became available during the pandemic, and teachers were leaving the profession in droves during the pandemic, is offer return to work bonuses. PUSD didn't get ahead of that, as some districts did the very first year. A lot of people did that, but we did the second year, and it helped us a ton. 3 years ago, we had to hire 34 new teachers. This last year, we only had to hire 25 new teachers. That's a significant difference, and a lot of that I credit to the proactive way that the board said, hey, let's do 5% raises, and in addition to that, offered a $1,500 return to work bonus for all staff. This year, we don't have quite that much money available. Our ESSER funds are committed or spent at this point, but we are fortunate that, contrary to what some folks in the community have been saying, our enrollment's not going down, it's going up, And because of that, we had significantly more money this year than we anticipated. When I say significantly, nearly $1 million for that. We've budgeted that into next year. You've committed that for next year, but it wasn't committed for this year, right? Because we do current year funding. So there is some money available. What the board has always chosen to do in the past is if we have money available, there's really a couple of things we can do with it. We can buy, I think I mentioned this to a couple of you, if we have $1 million, we can buy 1 billion pencils. That might be one way to do it. We can add to our carry forward. A lot of districts need to do that. They don't have nearly the kind of savings or cushion that they need to going forward. We're in great shape. We've been well managed for years, as we've talked about. So we don't need to add to our carry forward. One of the key things the board has decided to do in past years is if we have money now, it should be spent on kids now, and it should be spent on teachers now. So that's what we're recommending to you, is a return to work bonus for all of our staff. Again, we don't have $1,500 available, and we don't know exactly how much we will have available because we don't know exactly how many people will return. The early data is great. So far, we only know of 8 teaching positions that will be open for next year. 8? Yeah, but with your approval of the budget here a few minutes ago, we'll be passing out contracts to people, and that's when the rubber will really hit the road, right? People will tell us for sure, yeah, I'm coming back next year, or I'm not. There's a deadline attached to that. It'll be April 4th for your information, and we'll know. It'll certainly go higher than 8, but I'm hopeful it'll be lower than 25, which was last year, and a big part of that we're hoping will move the needle on that, or keep the needle where we want it, is return to work bonuses. And so we are recommending that we offer return to work bonuses in the amount available, which will be between $1,000 and $1,200, depending on the number of people who return next year. Questions?
And these monies come from M&O.
Right, yep, out of M&O, and again, it's because we've got more money than anticipated. Last year, you budgeted for enrollment to be flat, and it went up. So we've got money for this year available, and again, that's budgeted for next year, right? These things that we're talking about, because our costs overall went up 8.4%, and the state says, we'll give you 2% for that. We had to get it from someplace. Fortunately, we had an enrollment increase, and we're able to cover some of these things that you just voted on. But the money available, the one-time money, so to speak, that's a good way to put it, the one-time money available, rather than buy 1 billion pencils or add to our carry-forward cushion in an already very well-run district financially, we're recommending that we give this to staff who commit to return to teach our kids next year.
So I just want to be clear, this is
Yeah.
based on this year's enrollment, this fiscal year?
Correct,
Right.
correct,
Okay.
yeah. We're not making a projection that
Okay.
enrollment will go up again next year. We hope it will. If it did, that would be awesome, but yeah, we're not projecting that and using next year's money. We're using money that we have in the bank
That
right
came
now.
in this
Great
year.
question. Thank
Okay.
you for clarifying.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll reassess this every year, correct? According to.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, honestly, we'd never had recommended this in the past. During COVID, it became not only possible with ESSER funds, but critical. Most districts were doing it. We hadn't. We were worried about losing people, et cetera. I don't know if this, I don't anticipate, I'll be frank, that this is something we're going to be able to do going forward every year.
It would take an increase of enrollment. Once again, next year, the budget package that was voted on was for flat enrollment. And so if next year we end up with another 200 ADM, we didn't budget for that.
I was just wondering if we're going to vote on it every year.
Great question. I
The
don't
opportunity.
anticipate
I
bringing
don't
it
think
to
the
you again
opportunity
next
will be.
year, unless we go up another 217 ADM. That would be fantastic, but that would
Then we
also
have
be
to.
miraculous in a town that has fewer kids all the time.
Yeah, okay, I got my answer.
This is for one time only.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes,
That's
yes.
all I
Was
wanted
that
to
what you're
know.
trying to clarify? I apologize.
Would you like
Yep,
me to?
just for this year.
Would you like me to expound on that, Cara?
This is separate from the budget because the budget were reoccurring expenses, and this is not. This is one time. Yeah, thank you for clarifying. Apologize for misunderstanding. I'm like a freight train when I get going. Me and Mark Jornstead, we just can't stop.
Other questions? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve an August 2023 return to work bonus for all Prescott Unified School District employees as presented?
I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Next item, Mr. Tenney, again, is the PUSD salary placement schedules.
Yeah, so the last one was focused on retaining great staff. This is focused on recruiting new staff. Historically, what we've always done, and it's worked very well for us, is whatever raise the board recommends for continuing staff, we take half of that and we roll it into the salary schedule. So for 8 years between 2008 and 2016, the total amount of raises that was recommended by the board over those 8 years was 3%. And we took 1.5%, put that into our salary schedule, made it really, really hard to attract new people. But the last several years, we've been substantially higher than that, and we've taken half of that. So the recommendation that we're bringing to you is last year's salary schedule across the board, add 2% to each one of those cells. So a teacher with 13 years of experience and a bachelor's degree last year would have made a certain amount. This next year, we would offer them 2% higher than we offered last year. And that keeps us from new folks coming in and making more than, or leapfrogging we call it, right? Making more than our current folks with the same education and experience level, but it's also helped us to recruit pretty well.
If you look at our salary schedules compared to, who you're competing with when you're out there recruiting, how do we stack up?
Great question. We did a study of that last year, of the entire region, and with specific interest in how we stacked up, so to speak, with our neighbors to the east and west, or north, east and southwest, or whatever it is. No, southeast and northwest. At any rate, the board chose to go about 3% higher than those two districts last year, and that helped us, I think, when we were in competition for the same math teacher or the same sped teacher. A lot of people would like to go with the 4-day week that Chino has. A lot of people like to be in Prescott for the reputation that we enjoy here and how nice it is. And some people say, yeah, I live in Prescott Valley, I want to work for Prescott Valley. But if it comes down to, it's a toss-up, we pay more money than our neighboring districts by a little bit, and that's helped us recruit. Good question.
Do you think that will continue?
I'm not sure what their boards are approving, but we've tried to be, I don't want to use the word aggressive, we've tried to be as optimistic and forward-thinking as we possibly can with our raise recommendations and the increase to the salary scale recommendation as well. And I know that the things that we've done that have worked well for us over the years, sometimes our neighbors have followed suit on those things, and I think they do something similar in terms of how much they add to their salary scales with respect to how much the raises for current staff are. So I would anticipate we'd be a bit ahead, but I can't speak to that directly.
Yeah, sure. I'm just thinking because I know that one of our neighboring districts is seeking a superintendent and going with an increased salary range compared to ours based on their
That's a good point. They've come out publicly and said they want to pay substantially higher than we pay for than they were thinking of paying for.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's going to trickle down to teachers and staff.
Unless they've come upon a lot of money. So there's one superintendent. It's easy to do a couple of $1,000s here and there in a $30 million budget, but there are 215 teachers. And like Brian talked about earlier, you can take an enormous amount of money and spread it among a bunch of teachers, and it comes out to $2.97 a paycheck. So it's one of those things that sounds good, but is not as practical. So I don't know that they would be moving that direction, but maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I just provide a little background? Because we were frozen for so long, not only were we not giving raises, we weren't changing our salary schedules, and everything got completely out of whack. And when we started to compete to hire new teachers and we raised our salary schedules, we were leapfrogging new teachers over current existing staff, or teachers, staff, administrators, whatever. It took us probably 2 or 3 years to clean that all up, so that we had good salary schedules, we were giving raises, and philosophically at the time, the board approved that we would always add a little to the salary schedule to keep us competitive, and not let that grow stagnant, so that, one, it costs less to do it a little at a time than suddenly 5 years from now say, oh geez, we've been frozen, let's add all this money to the salary schedule. So it's nice to be in this place where we're able to give a raise to staff, but then also add a little to that salary schedule so we don't get stagnant again and start trying to pump money into it. It's kind of a gradual increase, and it's I'll just tell you, as someone who really worked on those salary schedules before Clark came in, it feels good to be in this position where we're competitive, we're giving raises, we're staying, in the market.
Great history, I appreciate that.
And I think, just anecdotally knowing that IT employees can make more money outside, nurses, SLPs, OTs.
CEOs can make more outside.
Pardon me?
I work for another organization that has just about the same number of employees,
Yeah.
and their CEO makes about $55,000 more than Mr. Howard does.
Yeah.
Everybody who's got a skill that translates someplace else makes more outside of education, but
Yes.
we do this because we love kids and we want to see our community be a better place.
So while the salary schedules have been going up and people can look at that number and say, well, why are we paying so much? If you look at the community and you look at the competition for these jobs, we're doing well to get the people we're getting, I think.
Yeah, and I'll finish where I started. There's a teacher crisis in Arizona, and we have really not felt the major effects of that yet, knock on wood. And it's because we have a forward-thinking board. And pine trees.
Any other comments?
They smell like vanilla when it's raining.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. Can we get a motion to approve the PUSD salary placement schedules as presented?
So moved.
Is there a
I'll
second?
second that,
Okay, it's
definitely.
been moved and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Next item, we will consider approving the issuance of contracts and agreements to eligible PUSD staff members for the 23-24 school year. So, this is Clark.
Is this me as well?
This is you as well.
Right, so essentially the contract, and I think you've got a couple of examples of contracts in your packet, so certainly ask any questions that you've got about that, but it just reflects what you voted on 20 minutes ago as far as raises for staff. So everybody who was with us as a teacher last year will be offered this, essentially the same contract next year with a 4% raise to it. Instead of Mrs. Dillon's signature on the contract, it's got Mr. Freyr's signature on the contract, and those are the key differences. Questions?
Can you just explain really clearly why we do this at this point of time in the year?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So it's been alluded to a couple of times tonight, but we used to do it much later once, the legislature for sure said, here's the amount of money you've got. We were kind of in reactionary mode for years, and we lost people because other districts got ahead of us and offered positions. I know of at least 2 teachers right now who are looking at positions in other districts where they've already been offered that, and they're waiting for our board to say, okay, here's your contract. So yeah, we want to get ahead of the game as quickly as we can to be able to offer contracts so people have that security. They know they've got their job and exactly how much they'll be making for next year here where they'd prefer to be. In most cases, if we wait till June, we'll lose a bunch of people. If we do this now, then it puts us in great shape to retain quality people. So, and it sometimes, because the legislature has moved us to current year funding and whatnot, it does feel a little fast sometimes if you're not used to this and focused on the information that's coming at you in bits, but it's the hard work that we've signed up to do together.
But we're ahead of many other districts.
We are ahead of many other districts. Again, a lot of people have figured out that it benefits their district to go early, so this is not as rare as it once was.
Okay.
Yeah, but it is necessary, and it sure has been helpful. Again, our retention rate has increased dramatically over the last several years as the board has chosen to vote on contracts as early as they can.
Great. Any other questions? Can we get a motion to approve the issuance of contracts and agreements to eligible Prescott Unified School District staff members for the 23-24 school year as presented?
So moved.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Our final voting item Mr. Moore, consider accepting PUSD's fiscal year 2022 single audit report package and all the other ones.
As previously mentioned, last year there was a new requirement that the 3 products that our independent audit firm that we hire needs to go in front of the governing board for a roll call vote so that it is available to the public, because it would be part of the attachments to the governing board documents. And so this is the second year that has been a requirement. I'll go through each of them a little quickly, but since you know, there's lots of pages, and I'll kind of go summarize what was in front in that packet. The first was the annual comprehensive financial report. It's a big, thick one. It's the one that we pay Heinfield and Meach to do. It's a CPA number crunching historical perspective of the district. I will give props to Cara, who has read it and has asked questions.
I think Jane read it also.
I only have one compliment a board meeting, so.
I asked you a question.
I know you did. Jane too. You know, and if you have any questions, you can reach me at any time, and we can have a meeting, go over it. It's just anything from liabilities to all revenue to all expenditures to the economy of Prescott, factors that affect student enrollment, just anything and everything that has to do with the school district is in that I think it's a 171-page document. So I will end my speech on the annual comprehensive financial report there, unless you have any questions, and I'll move on to the next document.
Brian, I just have a clarifying question.
Yes.
This is new last year, and it's a new law. Am I overgeneralizing it to say that the board is voting by roll call to say that they have received this?
Correct.
Right. So it's not necessarily approving whether they agree with it or disagree with it or whatever it is. It's just a legal piece to say that it has been received.
Correct. Anything and everything in there is fact. It's every dollar that was spent. It was every dollar received. It was every asset disposed of. There isn't anything that is feelings within the documents. It's here it is. You've received it. You can now review it as much as you want for the future purposes.
So unlike most of our voting items, which are decisions,
this is not.
By legality, just accepting that
Correct.
It has been received.
Yep. The content of it is important, but also you have as much time as you want to read it, page by page. You could read a page for the next 171 days on that annual comprehensive financial report.
Yeah, the point is it's not a recommendation
No.
by our administration.
No.
It's a report by an outside agency that by law we have to hire to come in and audit us.
Yep.
So basically it's just acknowledging that you know that's been done and you've received it.
Yep.
On city council, we call this kind of vote a ministerial duty. They're not asking what we think. They're saying, yep, this has been made public, and public officials have looked at it.
Thank you.
Yeah. The second document is the SARP. It's the Single Audit Reporting Package. This is an important one because we're held to extremely high standard when it comes to our federal dollars. And so one of the pages shows all of the federal dollars that we get, whether it's 21st Century Community Learning Grant, Title I, our SPED grants, ESSER, you name it, it's on that list. And the auditors pick 1 or 2 to 3 every single audit season, and they go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. And you don't want anything called a significant or material deficiency on your SARP. If you do, you have to have a corrective action plan, and then the next year report how that corrective action plan resulted. PUSD is, well, we're good at a lot of things, and we haven't had anything on our SARP for a while. So the end result of this document was that the PUSD, they looked at 2 areas. They looked at the COVID-19 Education Stability Fund and also the Child Nutrition Cluster. And both of those came out with no deficiencies, either significant or material. And thus, there's no action needed on our part because everything was spotless.
Congratulations.
To a lot of people who have a lot of hands in what we do from a compliance standpoint. The last document, so thank you. The last document is called the compliance questionnaire. This is where they look at so many things. Just kind of give you a heads up, there's 143 areas that they look at, and it ranges from governing board management procedures to budgeting to accounting records to cash revenue to property control to expenditures to travel reimbursements, credit cards, procurement, classroom site fund, that's a 301 money, payroll, financial reporting, student attendance reporting, IT, transportation, record management, and long-term debt. And they do samples. If there are samples, like for expenditures, they'll pick 50 expenditures. And we have to make sure that we have everything that we're supposed to based on the USFR, the Universal Standard for Financial Reporting for Arizona Public Schools. I can say that I will probably never see an audit like this again in my career. Last year we had only 8 audit findings, which was unheard of, single digits. I thought it was the highlight of our audits. And this year, and actually I said 4, it was actually 5. It was single digit. So you know what those 5 were. 2 were IT, 1 was a new requirement, and the way they do this is they don't tell you. And then when the auditors come, they know the new rules and they apply it to the previous year. So you get an audit finding and then you fix it for the next year. So that was one of them. And that had to do with if you work remotely and you have a laptop, you need a multi-verification for logging into the programs, so that if you have our accounting software and it's on a laptop, a person's child or spouse or someone who comes can't log into and access, or a cat can't log into and get social security numbers. So that was new, and so we have to rectify that. The other IT was one has to do with contracts for external vendors that has access to our sensitive information. And in their contract, they state how they safeguard our information. That was new a couple of years ago, and our IT still needs to fix that. Another one was travel reimbursement. You add up a whole bunch of miles and you get reimbursed for, a percent miles. Funny enough, a math teacher turned in their form and she added up all her miles. She added wrong, and we were crunching paperwork and we didn't double check her addition, and we overpaid a staff member by $2 and I think it was 37 cents.
Did you get it back?
$2.41. And that was an audit finding. And then there is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of student data that goes into our student information system, which gets uploaded to the Arizona Department of Education. That's how we're funded. Cheryl Blasso is incredible at keeping our records clean. And one student for CTED was reported in an understatement, so we actually underreported 0.25 of an absence, which our auditors, they can't be biased on a district, but they're just like, we've never seen an audit like this before. And then the last one was, it has to do with, whenever we get revenue, we put it into Chase, and once every month we have to transfer the money in Chase over to the treasurer's office. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars, and there was a reconciling of $400 that we were off when it came to our records from Chase accounting to the treasurer's office, and that was an audit finding. So that was our uniform. If you want to know how our district runs when it comes to our safeguards, our procedures, and it was interesting, they said, in the superintendent thing, they talked about, what was it, financial stability, what was the wording? Like becoming more financially, budgetarily secure. I don't know a district that is in better shape when it comes to budget and our safeguards and our audit.
But they want to keep it that way.
That I know, I didn't say keep. I just chuckled because the wording was not keep, it was increase it.
Restore financial.
Restore. So.
You're not going to find a more financially stable district.
That does things right.
In the United States.
And so anyway, Those are your 3 documents. Like I said, the compliance questionnaire is just impressive.
Again, congratulations.
Well,
Very
Yeah, let me
nice.
piggyback on that. It hasn't always been that way. And Brian rightfully credits his team, but I just want to point out that Brian educated and pulled that team together. I think years ago, our administrators and folks did not have a finger in this, or
No.
did not have a piece in this, and did not understand. But Brian is a teacher, and he has taught us as a district, and he has built that team. So, Brian, I know your team, I know it takes a bunch of people, and they are amazing, but Brian Moore has brought this. He's a competitive man.
Well, it's across the board. Even teachers not keeping collected field trip money in their desks, they can't do that. I broke so many audit things when I was a principal because I just didn't know the rules of the game. You collect $1 from a kiddo, you have 7 days to get that into the bank. And if you don't, I'm just saying, I stunk as a principal because I
But
didn't
he
know the
brought
rules.
that principalship experience and that understanding of what was missing, and he filled at it.
You know, I was going to say something on that question 9, because if you look at the list of answers for this, at 71%, it's a nod really to you, because this was the least, when we were looking at superintendents and those qualifications, this was the least, the bullet point would state, you know, I'm confident in my financial department. I just have to evaluate annual budgets. So we're not asking the superintendent to know everything about every single thing about the finances, because we trust in that department. So that's really a nod to you.
Yeah.
So,
Got a good department.
yeah.
Superintendent needs to be able to find them.
That's right. Who to go to.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'm going to word this. Can we get a motion to accept and receive PUSD number 1's fiscal year 2022 single audit reporting package, annual comprehensive financial report, and uniform system of financial records compliance questionnaire as presented?
And Andy, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I think the roll call means we go to each.
Go each person.
Individually.
So we vote this without a second?
Oh, yeah, you need the second.
So moved.
So moved.
And I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Robertson,
I accept.
Mrs. Khan,
Accept.
Yes.
Woods,
Yes.
Mr. Frere says aye. We are accepted.
Oh, that makes me
5-0.
so happy.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, we're into information and discussion items. Brian, Mr. Moore, do you have school board summary budget report?
We keep on saying that we want to get some feedback on the format of this, and Andy, do you want me to speak to the format so that it's generally understood?
Would you
then-
just explain, I mean, I'm looking at it in my packet, but the budget
Sarah, can you pull it
package,
up?
the budget pages are there.
Yeah.
Is there anything that we should know, that we should be aware of?
All right. So you get this every single month. I usually say as presented unless there's questions. And essentially what this is the budget is how much money we can expect to either receive. It's how much we have capacity to spend, essentially, in every area. And it's broken down by M&O, Classroom Site Fund, our federal grants, our state grants, our sale of property. Anytime we sell an asset, it goes into a fund. Anytime we sell property, which we have, it goes into a fund. There's also what's called revenue accounts. Revenue accounts are essentially, we get money based on something and it goes into that account, like our instructional proven, that's based on Indian gaming. And we get about $100,000 a year, it goes into that account. And then there's stipulations on how that account can be spent. So it goes through all of those accounts. And then I show you every month how much we've spent to the point where I ran this report. how much is encumbered. And encumbered just means that it's earmarked for an expense. Doesn't mean it may happen. If we have what's called an open PO to Owl's Auto Body, so that we can fix our buses or something, and it's for $10,000. It encumbers on day one that we do that purchase order, $10,000. We may only spend $5,000, and then at the end of the year, when we close the PO, it unencumbers. So you show, and also people, as soon as we create a position, their salaries and benefits get encumbered. And so essentially, it's the spending capacity, which is the budget, the actual expenses that have occurred, which is the expenditures, the encumbrances, the to be spent, and then you subtract and you get the balance. And that is this report. And Cara?
Does it roll over, or is this a one-year snapshot, or like just pick line 1, fund something, Title I, and we at the end of the year have $41,392 or whatever. Does that roll over for the next year, or do we have to spend it all?
Every single fund has a different carry forward capacity. For example, CTED, if you don't spend it, either Perkins or the state CTE, which is up here, if you don't spend it, you have to give it back. Other funds like Title I, you can carry forward. M&O, you can carry forward. Most of them you can carry forward. But there are some that you don't spend it, you have to give it back.
We try not to do.
Yeah, 21st century, you don't spend it, you give it back.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Almost as complicated as being a superintendent.
You know? No comment.
Each little fund has its own rules.
Yeah, each one has its own rules on how it can be spent, what you do with it at the end of the year. Jane had a great question about forest fees, if you go down, Sarah. It's in the negative. A little bit more. Right there, negative 86,000. How is that possible? Well, it's possible because the budget because this is one that could roll forward, so is the starting balance, plus what I expect us to get for forest fees, which is about 130,000. But we have 216 encumbered, and we haven't received the money yet, and so that 86 put us in the negative. And to be honest, it was just a large PO that was put into forest fees. Actually, it was the high school addition to their camera system. It was their security was 86,000. I'll have to move that expense to another fund because there's not enough money in that negative as indicator. By the end of the year, that will get moved to a fund that has a positive balance, and it will, trust me, it will get moved. But that's the reason why you see it as negative. It hasn't been spent, it's been encumbered. We need to move that before it's expensed.
So this item in this document is for the board to be able to keep an eye on it from month to month. So I would ask you all to think about this as you look at it next month. Be thinking about how it speaks to you, and if we can clarify it or change it to either simplify it or add different information that's not on there. That's what we've done every few years to say to the board. This should be something you can glance at and kind of keep a feel for what's going on with the budget.
Nice.
And if there's a way we can simplify that or improve that for you, this is your document, so let us know.
I think the top line to me is the most important, M&O, and you look at what the balance is, and that's just got to get us through the rest of the fiscal year.
And at the end of the year, there's about $800,000 that's in the encumbered that goes away when we close POs.
Right.
The real telling thing is really looking at 1 year ago at the marches and where that balance is. And that kind of tells us and gives an indicator where our carry forward will be.
Okay.
So.
Do you still take your E-rates refund back and put it in technology, or is that not a thing?
We get
anymore?
very little E-rate. The only thing that we did get E-rate for was our internet.
Okay.
And now that the county took that over, Yakisa gets the E-rate money.
I see.
So the only thing that we get really E-rate is the category 2, where we get a big lump sum that you have 5 years to spend. And we have a choice to either have E-rate pay the vendor or we pay the vendor and we get the E-rate money. And when we do that, it does stay in technology.
In tech,
Yeah.
okay.
That's,
So not every fund, even though you have a certain amount in one fund, you could move it into another fund in some cases. More likely, you're probably gonna put it back in that fund though, right?
when it comes to money received,
Yeah.
we're hands tied on which fund it goes to. We have choice on which fund we expense from. That's how we control the balance. If it's capital stuff or people, supplies, services, those are the two type of expenses, and most of them have stipulations on which one it could be spent on.
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thanks, Brian.
Yeah.
Anything else?
All right,
right,
please,
thank you.
feedback.
Yeah.
Otherwise, from this point forward, all I'm gonna say is as presented unless you have questions. It's the best part of the meeting for me.
That is if your next superintendent's okay with that.
I know, I'm really nervous. You give me a long week.
So that'd be an interview question?
Next item, Mr. Tenney, post 100-day enrollment update.
Sure, I'll try to be brief. Our high point this year, for enrollment, it changes every day, as we've talked about. Our high point enrollment was earlier in the year. I want to say we were about 4,011. That was terrific that we've exceeded 4,000 for the first time since before COVID. And we pulled some data from the last several years to see our 100th day of enrollment versus just before testing starts, because we know that we get a few more kids. Turns out that it's not a huge amount, but it is an increase. We've increased on average since 2017, 6 students in district-wide between the 100th day and when testing starts for us. So we get a trickle from other schools as folks are moving in and out and whatnot. Mrs. Robertson, you asked a great question earlier. What's our enrollment today? As of the 100th day this year, it was 3977. Today it's 3988. So just below 3988. So we're down about 0.081%, or excuse me, 0.081% from our high point this year. So we've got 99% of the kids that we had on our day that we had the most kids. So it goes up and down all the time, but not substantially. That's it, unless you got questions.
Any questions? I noticed, Brian, in the audit report, I think, that's based off ADM, correctly, the enrollment in the audit?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's, remember, one ADM is a student who has been enrolled from the first day to the 100th day.
Yep.
And so that is like 3,600 equivalent students, but also remember, kindergarten is only funded half.
Yeah.
So even if a student was here first the 100th day, if they're in kindergarten, that's only a 0.5.
Yep.
So our head count is not 4,000, our ADM is 3,600-ish.
Yeah. And pre-K is 0, right?
Pre-K, if they have an IEP, they are state funded.
Right.
But they're only also funded half. And so I think we have 16 or so, I think it was ADM on the 100th day for pre-K. That was equivalent to 32 kids enrolled from the first to 100th day.
Okay.
Out of about 160 kids in the preschool overall.
Otherwise, it's tuition from parents.
Okay.
And so when we looked at the budget earlier and we said we were up 217 ADM, that's fantastic. We're not up 217 head count, just to be clear. Those are two separate things. We're up about 100 head count though, which is terrific. And again, contrary to the narrative that's been misinformed by some folks in the community.
That's a good ADM increase,
It is
217.
Substantially.
It was about half from students and half from a change of legislature on how much a special ed category that we have the most kids is funded in that secondary ADM funding.
Okay. Any other questions? Next item, community comments. Anybody have anything to share?
They're all exhausted.
Okay. So our upcoming meeting dates, we have Friday, March 31st. Oh, I'm sorry, before we go there, I just wanted to point out, I forgot to point out in the consent agenda all the donations that we received. Again, and many for Mr. Villaborgi were donations made on behalf of Eddie Villaborgi. Super cool. Which was really
A
exciting.
lot of old friends of his, it looked like.
Yeah, yeah. Friday, March 31st, we'll have a special executive session meeting. Time is TBD. I understand would it be better later in the day than an 8 o'clock? I know for our folks coming from Phoenix, it's better. So maybe we'll search for a later start time. Tuesday, April 4th, regular study and voting session. We have listed Friday, April 7th as another executive session to review, for first round interviews. That is a holiday in the district. And so wondering if there's a better day, if Thursday, April 6th would be a better day for us to do that.
That's my lazy cheating. No, it's fine.
That works for me.
Thursday, April 6th?
Yeah, me too.
Don't think it matters to me.
Okay.
At 5, though. At 5.
Because
At some
Friday
point,
is Good Friday, right? For Easter
I think it's the
spring
week
break?
before.
Oh, okay,
It's the spring holiday.
okay.
It's April 7th. They get a day, and it's a professional development day for our teachers.
Could be a snow day makeup, but
Could be.
hopefully not.
Don't
But-
you say that?
I know.
But maybe we'll deconflict that if we maybe search for April 6th as a better time. And again, maybe later in the day.
So are you?
Spring break, March 13th through the 17th. Have fun. Are you playing in any tournaments, or do you guys have track meets or tournaments or anything?
Spring break.
Yeah.
We have one like that Saturday. Or wait, no, this Saturday. Yeah,
Saturday.
before it starts, right? But then we have a week off.
Yeah, there was always stuff, I remember.
I'm going to Japan with the school.
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
It's going to be so fun.
All right.
You'll have to give us a report.
Absolutely.
And with that, unless there are objections, we're adjourned.
Praise the Lord.